Howdy, folks. Your host, JJ Vance here, host of OpGCD, and most notably, not the vice president. And I won't delay us any further here this evening. Apologize for any technical and otherwise delays here this evening. And we'll welcome our guests here for this Fridaze. We got Phil Cesaro. Welcome back, Phil. Man with a lot of details, a secret agent of the Dewey Decimal System, as I like to accuse you of. Obviously being a smart ass, because you read a lot of books, sir, and I every time we talk, you hit me with some new details and new books I've never heard of. So for that much, I salute you. But I appreciate you returning here tonight, sir, to talk the Idaho 4 books of James Patterson and Howard Blum.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. And we also have joining us tonight, Kane B's The Purge, Mr. MKane Ultra himself. Welcome back to Operations.
Everybody, nice to see you. Happy Friday.
And joining us also from the Kane B's The Purge, Jenn from Criminal Confidential. How you doing, man? Welcome to Operation GCD for your first time.
Thank you for popping my cherry.
She gets wild on the weekend, Jage, in the morning.
It's Friday, so we get kicked off right with Buffalo Jared Revisa, the mind-controlled multi-state murderer who wanted to be my PR rep, talk me about it, and I think he wanted to really stab me a bunch of times and wear my skin as a human coat. But anyhow, it's Friday, so we can have these kind of conversations for sure. And I appreciate y'all joining me here tonight, all three of y'all, and I appreciate you folks at the interwebs joining us for this discussion on these matters. But the Idaho 4, it's a great time to have this discussion, considering the matters that just got happening today with the release of documents earlier in this past week, and then now crime scene photos.
You are correct, sir.
So if Kane may get you to introduce Kane B's The Purge to any folks of the interwebs unfamiliar, and we'll also let Jenn introduce her Criminal Confidential as well before we get some thoughts on these matters of the books and these photos.
The Purge is this The Purge? We're a small.
I mean, it's kind of like, I think this is an invasion of the Purge. You've invaded Operation GCD. I'm going to give you a
Purge
thumbs up
takeover.
Here.
We're just a small community here with the Idaho 4. I know a lot of people don't even like to talk about it because they got some kind of annoying relative that's always bringing it up. But we focus on that case and the corruption that seems to be surrounding it, and we're getting a little closer to pinpointing and putting the whole thing to rest, I hope. And so, yeah, I run a true crime comedy channel, and we mostly focus on YouTube. And if you want to sub up, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'll put your link in the show notes. I appreciate you joining me there, MKane Ultra. And Jenn, once again, thanks again for joining us here for your first time in Operation GCD. Kane's a regular, and Phil's a returning all-star. And your first time here from Criminal Confidential and producer of The Purge, long before my time at The Purge.
The talent.
Yeah, you were holding the show together.
Yeah, we have a good dynamic. Me and King got a good thing, especially when we don't talk for a while. Then we just bust each other's balls.
Well, she's pretty much the last one that'll laugh at my jokes. So,
aw, that's not true.
Well, I've enjoyed my time at The Purge. I appreciate collaborating with both of y'all over there the past what about almost 7 months now, huh, Kane?
I know.
And some good weekly roundups we have over there, some wonderful fast food news and type 2 diabetes talk. But Jenn, you've always, as much as I look at this case, you've definitely brought some new details and perspectives to my brain hole with some of your videos on your YouTube channel.
I'm sorry for that. I'm not going to say you're welcome. I'm going to say I'm sorry, because this case is insanity.
It is. And one of the things I think, one of the more of the strategic kind of things I've learned from your channel there is, one of the concepts I often recite as well is, a lot of these things that are presented to us, and this is kind of my introduction for tonight's show as well here, but a lot of these things presented to us, like these books or the Airmail series by Howard Blum, is for our consumption. When we start comparing and contrasting the known knowns, the facts, and they don't really comport. So, and one of those things you really brought to my attention was, these videos that got leaked, that continually people dissect over time, and you presented strong arguments. These are all bullshit as well. These videos that were released.
Yeah, exactly. Anything they released, they did it for their benefit, basically, is my opinion.
I
That's
totally agree.
becoming more clear every day. I mean,
Everything is
it's
strategic.
so obvious.
And it's the time frames in which these things occur and the matters in which they kind of resolve, right? And that's some of the stuff you pointed out in your videos.
The timing is just so obvious. It's like distraction.
Yeah.
This case has given me trust issues like you would never believe. I don't believe anything anymore. Like I question everything now.
Yeah,
and I
JJ
think everyone
definitely-
should, everyone should use their brain holes and try to discern facts and whatnot. And I'll put your link in there in the show notes too, Jen, for folks to check out some of these videos, because I know one of those videos you really, brought to my attention was the questions around, because I've long questioned the details of the events of all of these folks, the surviving roommates, right? Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, in the 24 hours preceding the alleged murders. And also, the timeline of events, what did they do? Where were they at? These things have all been very murky, but some of the more the more salient points of that murky timeline is this alleged formal function that went on Friday night. I know you did a video on Friday the 11th. This was the purpose in which Dylan Mortensen allegedly, stalked Kaylee Gonzalez, apparently almost, right, to come back to campus for. And then Howard, James Patterson paints an interesting narrative in regards to these events. And I think we'll get into that more, but that is certainly something that I appreciate about your videos. And we see time after time, we get different timelines here, new timeline after new timeline, but
it's confusing. I swear, there's no way all of this can just be happenstance. Like it has to be designed to overwhelm and confuse, in my opinion.
For sure. Schizo in, schizo out, right, ma'am?
Exactly.
And Phil, appreciate your time once again here, sir. Looking forward to your professional book reviews on these details. You man reads a lot of books. There's the agency of the Dewey Decimal System, so I'm sure you have some interesting perspectives on these matters, because it seems like even if you compare the Blum narrative to the Patterson narrative in these books, those don't even comport.
I mean, not really. I mean, I feel like the Blum one kind of was rushed. I mean, it was I think it was less than 200 pages. It wasn't a long book. And it seems to kind of focuses more on Brian Kohberger's, actions, more like in the wake of the death than the victims. Meanwhile, the Patterson book was more, I think, focused on the victims. Like it became more about that. Like I think it took a bit before even Kohberger even pops up. And
no, that's a good point.
Yeah,
there was much more of a backstory, right, in the Patterson novel. And then I don't know if I got to the root cause of how Patterson got involved, him and Vicky Ward, but I do know that Howard Blum claims how he got involved. I did hear some of his statements. We can actually play some of that. We can hear from his own mouth, but it is interesting because he claims that he reached out to Graydon Carter from Vanity Fair and was like, "Hey, I need to, somebody to run this article." And he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll do that for you, bud. We'll do that on this new outlet named Airmail." Now, Airmail is an interesting outlet here because they're owned by a capital management firm there, right, down in Dallas, Texas. That capital management firm has $1.5 billion of the Washington State Employees Pension Fund invested into it. So in a sense, you could say the Washington State Employees Pension Fund kind of owns Airmail. And we see all that impacts a lot of folks in these narratives, from the police chief in Pullman to the prosecutors in Pullman who are involved in these matters, to even elements of the university. Those folks are also involved in the same pension fund. So it does paint a picture of, Howard Blum's like, "Oh, I did this," and reached out to them. And they're like, "Yeah, let's do that." But, when you look at it, it seems like some of the machinations of that might have some other stories. But you're right, though. He had a very, considering he wrote from January 7th for the next, I think, 18 months or so, to like June of 2020, January 7th, 2023, the day after Kohberger makes it to Idaho, right? He gets there on January 6th, I believe, from Pennsylvania. He writes 18 months of these articles on Airmail, but then, kind of puts a lackluster performance into a book about it.
Did you know that there's one other book as well. I forget what the title is. The guy's name, Applebaum.
Applebaum. Yeah.
There you go. He did one as well. I haven't read it at all, not even one page. So I don't know what that narrative is because it's got to be different.
Well, it sounds like Phil might be aware with it. Phil, are you familiar with this book?
I've seen it on Amazon. So the weird thing is about the Blum book with my review, I got that assigned. Like they, because I know I like true crime, so they assigned it to me, the one publication. And then the Patterson book, I kind of just more chose because I was kind of interested in it. And I actually I finished it within the past couple of weeks. I wrote it right before I went down for my vacation, and it was actually the day. I think it was the day of the sentencing or something like. It was in and around one of those moments that I even incorporated it in my review, and I just remember thinking, "Wow, that kind of worked out timing wise." But
very suspect, right?
The Amazon series. Did you watch that?
No,
that's a whole other narrative. Like there's more contradictions if you.
That's true. No, that's true, Jen, because they use Howard Blum's material. They interview Blum, but they do twist some of the stuff that Blum paints in his narrative. That's not the
right.
same.
And big details are contradictory. That's seems to be the general.
Let's get into some of those details here in a moment, man. But let's kick it off with Phil telling us what was your overall take. Which one was your favorite book?
I'd have to go, even though it takes on one of his novels, I would have to go with the Patterson book, just because it's more developed. And, like I said, it gets more into the victims. It gets more into the story. I don't like the fact that, first of all, they admit the motive is the hardest thing for them to find. They've never found a motive. And
shocker, right?
When they throw in that Elliot Rodger side story to it and kind of, maybe speculating that Kohberger got some sort of inspiration from the original incel, however they're painting Roger. I think I had heard his name once before, but wasn't really that familiar.
No, you're spot on. They painted him as an incel, and that was an early narrative in the Kohberger situation, was that he was an incel. But that's also, and we've talked about this on The Purge quite a bit, this narrative of what's been painted in the propaganda versus what the facts are being argued by the state in the court. And that's one of the things that early on the state had and it's recited and repeated over time. There was no stalking. He was not, there was no incel stuff, right? So this is kind of that comparing and contrasting the propaganda narrative versus the state's narrative, and we can kind of see where these things don't comport. But it is a very interesting thing that they wanted to run with that in a very dramatic style, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they at one point they kind of try to frame what could have been a scenario where I think it was Maddie Mogan, whoever worked. I think she was the one who worked as like in a restaurant or something.
Yes,
and
sir.
The possibility.
The Mad Greek. So there you go. Yeah. There's another. If I may, there's another portion where they're continuing to perpetrate a narrative where the state is confirmed and the owner of that restaurant is confirmed that Brian Kohberger was not there.
Yeah, and they try to say, oh, maybe he was there. Like at one point, like that's kind of what they try to inject into storyline.
Heavy inference, right?
Bill, they actually went so far in the beginning to call it a vegan restaurant when they actually only have one vegan dish there. They called it one of the few vegan restaurants in the area, and both roommates Xana and Maddie both worked at that restaurant.
You know what was weird about the whole Mad Greek situation is if you look on the official, where the corporations are registered, I don't know what it's called, there's a different owner, and the woman that came out said that she was the owner. I mean, it's a little detail, but when you combine that with the fact that they shut down, they closed their business not shortly after, maybe within a year. I don't know the exact date. I don't know. It just seems a little odd.
No, they did wrap up. You're right. They did wrap up shop there, didn't they?
Yeah. As far as I know, they were doing good business. I mean, why close down? Because remember, there was early rumors about some kind of Greek kingpin. I don't know. It's a whole narrative. We'll save that for next time. But they lied about the owner. I thought that was weird. Why lie?
Well, they lie about everything, Jen, don't they?
True. I tend to ask
He
that a
didn't want
lot.
to play ball, probably.
It's a
I'm
real,
gonna start
it's a
asking,
real
why
clown
didn't
show.
you lie? Why did you
Yeah,
not lie?
It's a real clown show out there, real circus there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good one. He's at the circus.
I think
you got to get Chief Fry at the circus, right?
That was the tent they did all the investigation out of, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that was the crime scene. That was the crime scene unit that came in there. So we see all these things like fingerprints now, even in the new photos. We see it in the reports. They did fingerprints. Fingerprints were never a discussion in any public hearing or any public reports. As far as
Never.
forensic evidence goes.
And
So
it's funny how there's all these different photos out there of the kitchen looking totally different. Like in one shot, all the stuff's on the kitchen table. Another shot, you have the stuff that was on the table, dirty bowls, etc. That's on the counter now. You're not supposed to move things around. I thought.
Well, Jen, have you seen all the recent crime photos?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
you saw them all?
I didn't. I mean, I saw maybe 10 of them. I don't know.
Did you see the ones with the handprints on the
Yeah.
window? Yeah. That was.
Oh, well, I
yeah.
think I can solve this conundrum for you all.
Please do.
So those weren't crime scene photos. They're interior decorators now. Moscow PD.
Bingo.
They're just
remember-
redecorating the place.
They had, when they were moving the mattresses and all those things into the back of pickup trucks, there was a cooler outside and it had these like plastic water gallon jugs, but there was like, it looked like Kool-Aid. I'm like, did they really, like, is that stage blood? Like, what is that red stuff in these big water gallon bottles?
Yeah, you never drink the Kool-Aid. Never drink the Kool-Aid.
But like, what is that? What was that for?
So, that's it. Was cleaning the crime scene out before you even have a suspect on December 7th, right? I mean, what is any of that for, right?
True, because someone was like, "Oh, it's some kind of chemicals for the forensics." I'm like, but that would come in its own bottle. It wouldn't be.
I agree with you, and I have a lot of questions around those matters, and we can definitely get into them because I want to see some photos of the removal of this wall that they claim to have moved out of there, right? And things such as that, but. Back to these motives. So we don't have a motive from the state. The state actually basically said in reports here. I don't know if you've caught any of that action, Phil, that some of these investigators, the new police chief of Moscow, who was the captain at the time, the state's attorney general, Bill Nye the science guy or whatever his name is, Jeff Nye, Jeff Nye the lawyer guy. And they're all making very strange comments to the media, but Bill Thompson. But one thing they keep saying is that he didn't have a motive. They're saying that he didn't have a motive. They're saying he probably just picked the house that night. We have no idea why, et cetera, et cetera. But we see both books painting the narrative that he was stalking Maddie Mogan. That is a commonality between the Bloom and the Patterson, right?
Yeah, and they basically said that we wouldn't understand it anyway. Even if we had a motive, we wouldn't. You wouldn't understand it anyway.
That could be the theme.
It's real technical, man. It's real technical.
Pry me.
That could be the theme of their pat each other, stroke our cocks world tour that the LE and the prosecution are doing right now. He had no motive. Now, we were talking about some stuff last night, Jay, but as far as where evidence usually will lead you to the motive. And even in cases where there literally is no motive, that some kid was just bullied or whatever, just something that just pops up on the street, it's a believable scenario. With this one, they've gone to such extremes to paint a motive and create a boogeyman that it dirties the water so much that you can't drink the Kool-Aid. I mean, I would love to take a big gulp of it and just walk out of this case forever.
Are you holding out on me, dude? You got Kool-Aid? What's up?
Yeah.
Actually,
oh yeah.
I'm working on the last of my orange
He
drink.
just wanted to do it. That he was doing it for, to commit the perfect crime, whatever. They could have just made something like that up, but they can't even do that. It's just crazy.
So it is interesting with those photos. They do look like they were taken with an iPhone. They don't look like high quality images either.
You would think in an interior space like that, they would use a wide angle lens if they were true realtors. Maybe they would do fisheye and stuff like that.
Decorators.
there's a layer of dust all over like the furniture and like the, you know, the wall that's on the top of the stairs between the first and the second. If you look at the details, it's ridiculous. There's cups all over the floor, but like nothing's spilled.
Yeah.
The table's like right there in the way. So like, come on. But the cups are
Well, something that stands out to me about the house.
All the alcohol bottles are gone too. Sorry, I wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, no, there's a variety of different alcohols, which is unique.
No, the wine bottles that are on that cart under the vibes, they took those away.
Oh no, y'all right. There's a lot of interior decorating and gaffes and errors they made in their photo shoots. But if I may table that for a moment and we get back to these motive matters. So
I wanted to talk about what we talked about at the beginning about the book on Patterson.
Is it type 2 diabetes related?
Negative. It is actually
type 1.
As far it feels like Phil was saying, it just had a feel of unfinished. And I literally feel like it was directly taken from his outline or his notes, and he just kind of couldn't complete thoughts in certain ends of chapters. And
which book we talking, sir? This book, Patterson, or are we talking Schindler's List?
Green eggs in hand.
I didn't realize it was a book, Schindler's. I thought it went straight to DVD.
Well, first of all, dude, you don't know much about Schindler's List, sir. So I recommend you learn your history, then we'll talk Schindler's List.
I was making out during most of it, so
allegedly.
No, you're bringing up some good points there. Please continue. I didn't mean to distract
you.
Well,
the thing is with Patterson, I think his writing style is a fantastical kind of romantic world, and he just kind of tries to paint their lives as, and it's incomplete. Just every section just felt like, at the end you're just kind of questioning, like, why are you even writing this? You know, he just tried to make what facts he had. He did gather a lot of facts about the victim's history, which
yeah, but it's
was
all fluff,
something
right?
on its own. But he never followed through, and he just tried to create this romance novel out of it.
Fluff,
and
dude.
The bad guy was Koberger.
It is.
So, and it's
not
interesting
even
that in neither of the books, in neither of the books, do they even discuss a single anomaly or mistake or failure on the law enforcement side.
Well, it was a perfect
and they never even consider an alternate plan, motive, or suspect. So there's definitely commonality between the two.
They establish. Sorry. In addition to, trying to say that he stalked Maddie or whatnot, they try to establish through his issues with Koberger's student, the student teaching the TA job, that he had issues with women. So you kind of almost like try to set there's like a misogynistic sort of streak with him. Meanwhile, I mean, he's definitely, I'm pretty sure he's on the spectrum. And that probably factors into certain things. But it's almost like they try to push, okay, he had issues with how he graded female students, and so that imperfection leads to him murdering 3 of 4, 3 women and a guy in a brutal murder, which apparently the cops were like, one of the first things they talk about in the Patterson book is the cops being like, just shocked. I'm like, did they walk into Wonderland? Like, I mean, murders are rough, but I said, did they walk into a crime scene that was a combination of Wonderland Avenue and South Bundy? Or, and meanwhile, not question the fact, why the hell did it take 8 fucking hours between when Dylan allegedly saw the killer and then when she reached out for help? Because, what I would do is when I'm scared is go right back to bed. Like,
well,
nothing.
They were sleeping, sir. They were sleeping. That's the and I like where your head's at, Phil. Say when we bring up these timeline narratives, it wasn't until March of this year when the defense released a published transcript of activities, incomplete. They even stated that in their motion, and incomplete. So there's additional activities on Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk's phone yielding on the only conclusion you can yield from that is they were never asleep because their phones are going off at all times. Snapchats, text messages, phone calls. Indeed, someone applied for a job apparently.
Totally normal. Totally normal.
Editing
behavior.
photos.
Totally above board. Totally normal. Not suspect. No, not suspect at all. But we see on that timeline produced with these crime scene photos by Fox News. Mark Furman's their expert on the case. Nazi felon Furman.
Naturally.
And, yeah, he's the one they always have him commenting on there. And interestingly enough, early on in the case, there was a glove found by this mysterious character, Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective and a YouTube personality of sorts. He went to the crime scene from his home, apparently in California, and on or about Thanksgiving 2022, there about 2 weeks after the crimes, found a glove outside, made a big deal about it, right? No, it was never a big deal to me. It all seemed pretty preposterous. However, apparently, he's recently stated that Mark Furman's son was hanging outside the house with him that day. What the fuck is Mark Furman's son hanging out with him that day? That ain't the only Furman connection because one of the detectives in the case. I don't think so. They're not from too far by in the Furmans, that is, in Washington State. But one of the other integral characters I don't recall her mentioned in either book, and that is ISP Detective Victoria Gooch, aka the Gooch.
Yeah, did not see her name in there. No, nope. And I was looking.
It was Goochless. I was upset, sir. I was looking for the
Sans Gooch. Sans Gooch.
Phil, so, was this your first foray into the Idaho 4 case, other than just what you hear in the media?
Yeah, no, 100%. It was my.
So the books were your first introduction. Well, okay, so after you finished both, I guess, what was your initial inclination or impression?
1 second, sir. 1 second, sir. 1 second, sir. Hold that thought. So the Gooch's law enforcement mentor, by her own admission, was a fellow by the name of Furman. And yes, I did his family tree, and he is Mark Furman's cousin.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So we have some weird stuff going around. I just want to point that out, not necessarily relevant to your point. Please continue there, Kane.
Did you do the whole family tree?
The Gooch. Well, let's not get into my genealogical predictions, right, buddy? Dude, I'll do your family tree right now, dude. Dare me. I'll do your family tree right now, Kane.
There's not many left, but we're dying. A dying breed.
You told me your stepfather's a Maynard. I already got a good line on that. The Maynards, that is.
Yeah, you're halfway there. You just got to get over to the Blandford side.
Well, I'm a Maynard. Charles Manson's a Maynard from Pikeville, like myself. So, I know the Maynards.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear Phil's initial assessment of the case, just based on those romance trash novels that he read. he called it too. He without any encouragement, he said that they were just garbage.
I was familiar with Howard Blum's work. I had read his book about John Gotti, how the FBI got Gotti, Gangland, and I'd read a couple of his books that were, one was about the infamous mole hunt in the CIA back in the 70s. And
is that Oliver James? Which mole hunt we talking?
They're talking one that James Angleton, the counterintelligence head for 20 years, led, that broke up like the Russian division in the CIA. I mean, it was one of the guys who eventually got fingered was a guy named John Arthur Paisley, who they found allegedly killed himself. I think they found him. He had jumped off his boat. While he jumped, shot himself while chained to like a brick. And then when they found his body, he was like that Lee Harvey Oswald, managed to be a few inches shorter than he had been.
Dude. And that's talent. Let's recognize that talent, sir. That's some talent right there.
And but Blum's conclusion in that was that Paisley was a Russian spy, and then he faked his death, that he substituted the body, something along those lines. But he's written tons of books. I mean, about the Walker family spy ring, about Nazi war criminals in America, about UFOs. So he's kind of covered a lot of the terrain, true crime, and sort of that a little bit the out there. Well, that was actually his book about UFOs, was out there, but the kind of spectrum of crime and also like, the alternative news to a degree. But in reading When the Night Comes, The Night Comes Falling, I just felt like it was very bare bones. Like there wasn't, it was like a procedural, like there wasn't really anything to it. It was just like, okay, here's what happened. Kohberger is the only person, and that was it. And it was just like, okay, it didn't leave me with anything. I mean, again, it's a little bit a mediocre true crime book, and in his case, probably not one of his better ones. Now, when you get to Patterson, now again, you got to, when you come with these collaborative efforts, especially because like Patterson is branched off, and it's an interesting connection that he co-wrote this book with Vicky Ward. And you have the fact that Vicky Ward has been involved in some of the Jeffrey Epstein reporting. And one of the first nonfiction books that Patterson got involved with was Filthy Rich, which is about Epstein, which came out in 2016, that he co-wrote with a guy named John Connolly, who was a former...
Yes, sir. If I may, he's Epstein's neighbor in West Palm Beach as well, right?
Who, Patterson or Connolly?
Patterson lived right next door to old Jeffy boy down in West Palm Beach. So when he wrote that Filthy Rich book, I was like, wait a second. Jeffrey Epstein's neighbor and Bill Clinton's good buddy, James Patterson, co-author with Bill Clinton, is suddenly going to tell the world about Jeffrey Epstein. You know? Yeah.
It's and I remember reading Filthy Rich because in that book he absolves Trump. He promotes the story about how Epstein and Trump broke over, I think it had something to do with like real estate or something back in 2004. And that was it.
Once again, sir, you are a man with a lot of details, and I do respect and appreciate that. You are correct. So as the tale goes, Epstein was bragging to Trump back in 2004 about purchasing some property down in West Palm Beach, thinking Trump was broke, and as Patterson frames it there. And apparently, moments after Epstein had taken Trump to the home, Trump called the realtor and paid cash. So, and stole the home, swept it out from underneath old Jeffy's feet. So I don't know the validity of all those circumstances, but it is interesting. That is the way Patterson framed it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think he's literally begun a departure from his Alex Cross days, and now he's doing these co-written, true crime books. I think he did one about the assassination of John Lennon. He co-wrote a Kennedy, which might have been a bashing one. I don't know. It feels like most of the books about the Kennedys nowadays are ones bashing them in one form or another, which to call back to the Mark Furman reference, Mark Furman worked with Dominic Dunn on the Murder in Greenwich about Martha Moxley. And
dude, I've read that book. You've named a book I've read, sir. I'm excited.
I've never read Murder in Greenwich, but I did read RFK's book about Michael Skakel, Framed, which I thought was a good book. And he bashes Furman and Dominic Dunn. He said Dominic Dunn had a crush on Furman.
Yeah, that book is bullshit. I'm not surprised the way you're describing these things. I've read the Furman book. It's nonsense.
Well, I think he's out there to rubber stamp certain things, like because he's like, oh, I investigated the Kennedy assassination. Then he writes A Simple Act of Murder. I'm like, well, why didn't he just work with Vincent Bugliosi while he was at it? Another one who kind of was quick to say Oswald did it. And I feel like a lot of these guys
they're always shit-coating these same circumstances, the JFK stuff, right? Bugliosi with the Manson stuff as well. They're small circle of these shit-coders and propagandists, but we do see it perpetrating here, especially with Epstein, because Leon Black's involved in these circumstances, and he's another Epstein fellow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He was also absent from any references in the book, despite this large-scale effort by University of Idaho President Scott Green to make this unlawful procurement acquisition of the University of Phoenix, financed through Leon Black, the alleged kid diddler who was paid over $200 million to Epstein victims to avoid future litigations, and a man who has he beat out Epstein's Ponzi scheme on Wall Street. It was Epstein, and then it was Leon Black. Both of them walked. Their co-conspirators went to prison and paid restitution. And then you had Bernie Madoff topping them off with a better Ponzi scheme. And then you bring in Sam Bankman-Fried, and we find as the bigger Ponzi scheme than all of those. Sam Bankman-Fried's Ponzi scheme beats all of those guys and the original Ponzi scheme guy named Ponzi, who was named after in the
Charles
20s.
Ponzi.
He beats all of them combined with Sam Bankman-Fried and never gets the proper credit for that. I think there's good reason. But one other aspect to that is we find him in a money laundering operation 45 miles or 45 minutes north of both campuses. He gets busted 6 weeks after the murders in December for money laundering. No one got charged, a couple fines, everybody walked. Bankman-Fried's charges are not related to these matters, despite it being busted by the feds and the FDIC and the Department of Justice, seized the bank. But my point being there is we do see some machinations of those circumstances that may, in fact, provide motive to these murders outside of this preposterous tale of that lacks any evidence, even confirmed by the state, of incel, of stalking, right? And these are the narratives for the motives were sold in these books, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they kind of allude to the fact there's not a clear-cut motive, but the Patterson book really leans hard on. Now, I don't know if that's Patterson or if that's more Vicky Ward, because again, really comes down to how much, because it's kind of tough to say with these books, like who's doing more of the writing. Is it Ward just provides the research? And again, I've read one of Vicky Ward's books. Vicky Ward wrote a book about Lehman Brothers back in the day. I think it was like Devil's Casino or something like that. She wrote a good book about them, but some of her other work I know has been kind of, up for speculation on.
Is Blum well respected? Like, is he known for BS stuff? Or I thought he was. I always thought he was kind of legit until.
Yeah, no, I think he had more. I think he had more legitimacy. But yeah, like I said, this book was very disappointing. And then I think I was actually talking to JJ, mentioning about Howard Blum, and then speculating on the possibility that in the end, like, okay, is he just someone who they feed information to?
He's a clearinghouse, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like a clearinghouse?
Yeah.
Like your rubber stamp you were talking about before?
Yep. The chosen person.
I think that's an accurate analysis, sir. I think it's a very accurate analysis.
And now I don't know. I mean, I read the book, but I don't know if he had previously written pieces with Vanity Fair, because it's interesting enough. One of the books I just finished this week was about Condé Nast, the publisher of Vanity Fair, New York Magazine, and all these, Graydon Carter, all these sort of interweaving personalities.
Communist rags. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it talks about Jeffrey Toobin and the OJ case and all these things. Oh, yeah. It was, really
Jeffrey Toobin, the serial masturbator who somehow got his job back, right?
Yeah. And then goes and writes his, Timothy McVeigh, lone bomber, all that sort of stuff.
I'm sure he did the research, though, right? I'm sure he did the research, though. You can trust Jeffrey Toobin. You can trust Jeffrey Toobin not to write a good book, but to masturbate on a Zoom call with his fellow coworkers.
He never needs to work again. I mean, because The People versus O.J. Simpson was based off of his book.
That's right, dude. That's right. That's an excellent point, sir.
Yeah, a lot of that.
He cashed in on that one, didn't he?
Oh yeah. I mean, he besides becoming like a latter version of like a Greta Van Susteren, like he got his second. I mean, he was a prosecutor. I think he said like one of his first cases involved Oliver North. I think it was something involving like Iran-Contra, and the next thing you know,
are you kidding me?
I swear to God, he had. I think he had a book in relation.
Phil, are you joking me right now?
And to God,
Jeffrey Toobin. I didn't realize he was going that far back to run and cover on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But you guys have sure touched every flower in the field as far as topics go. But
well, I mean,
I wanted to come back maybe to the book discussion that we're here for a second.
Yes, sir. Let me put a buck in on that note from Phil, and I appreciate those details, sir. Leon Black was a confirmed money launderer in BCCI money laundering operations of Iran-Contra in the latter half, part 2, Iran-Contra part 2 in the early 90s. So to coincide with Hot Shots part 2, it was the same time. Go ahead, Kane.
Oh no, I thought it was interesting that you said that Sam Bankman-Fried was the Ponzi schemer of Ponzi schemers. But the way I see it, he just ran away with all the money and kind of released himself or hid from his handlers and was able to run amok with all that cash and just buy ridiculous things and spend tons of money on ridiculous parties. And
I think it became
who was that guy with the electric company out there in California? I keep wanting to say Epstein, but
Schindler's List.
That would be more of a structured Ponzi scheme, in my opinion, where Sam Bankman-Fried was just kind of like, shit, what are we going to do? We spent all the money, let's lie. But
Well,
in the
you make some excellent points. So I just may reply with a quick statement here. You
Sure.
make some excellent points. That is the narrative being sold. It is not the facts. So much like this case, there's a false narrative sold, and that ain't the facts. So
Enron,
Enron. Well, for very, very much SBF there, Bankman-Fried is very much a puppet of many regards. There's a lot of money laundering to Ukraine. Taxpayer money of the U.S. taxpayer money to Ukraine went through FTX. Lots of it. So that's not being discussed. But John Chalopin's his business partner in Moonstone Bank, that money laundering operation, they purchased a 125-year-old bank with 3 employees and started turning out a cash for crypto scam. It's evident in their FDIC reports, despite never being charged for any of these matters and despite the bank being shut down by the feds for money laundering. So this guy also connects to BCCI, Iran-Contra, through the Bahama Bank scandals in the network of the bank he runs down there. So there's a deeper element to the Sam Bankman-Fried story. He's not just some weird Silicon Valley nerd sex cultist.
But he was very young, and he made kind of probably what I would say would probably be maybe a lot of the mistakes some of us would have made at his age. But
youthful indiscretion, the one the politicians use.
I often accuse myself of a misspent youth, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not doing that dumb shit.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
JJ, we know what your past is. You're running SWAT teams, and I know how hard those guys party. So,
well, that's what I'm saying. I have many years of a misspent youth, even before that. Where do you think I learned how to break into things? In the buildings for SWAT missions.
Nobody asked allegedly. But back to the book, the Patterson with the collab. It's interesting that the DNA thing wasn't discussed more because the co-writer was a British lady. I forgot her name. And in Britain,
Vicky Ward.
Vicky Ward. Yeah. In Britain, from what I understand, there is a lot of interest in this case as related to the DNA fiasco that went on there, and for her to be interested in the case. When you tend to discuss with it people around you, and for her not to even really dive into that, it shows that there's something off there. It's following a script. It's not just their vision or opinion that they brought to that book. It's like make sure that
it was intentional to forget it, to not include it.
Right. Yeah. It's like they went out of their way to leave it out. Yes. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I got you.
The case they present in the book to me, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but I've been around enough stuff. I have lawyers in my family. I would say it's less than circumstantial. I mean, they have the knife sheath. That's the only thing that they connect to Koberger. That's their big piece of evidence right then and there. The knife sheath. That's it.
And we don't even know if that really was the murder weapon. That's the thing. People forget that you can't.
We've never seen a knife sheath either, have we, Jen?
Yeah, I mean,
we have bloody crime scene photos. Still no photo of the knife sheath.
I mean, I feel like I didn't even remember them looking for the knife. I think some regular citizens did their own search, but I don't recall any kind of organized. I mean, they can find Osama bin Laden, but they can't find the K-bar.
Well, no, it's funny you say that because the statements by investigators after the fact of the guilty plea, they all said they did an extensive search, but there's no evidence of a grid pattern search or any evidence of these matters. And Detective Kane over here, MKane Ultra, called up the alleged. He's a private detective, like Mark Furman's a private detective, because they don't license private detectives out there, and you can be a felon Nazi like Furman and apparently call yourself a private detective. But that Jason Jensen fella, he's the one who gathered those matters, and MKane Ultra called his office. Turns out to be a coffee shop.
Interesting.
Well, and then we actually got him on the phone. I still can't believe we got him on the phone, James.
Oh, dude, he was so confused about life.
He must have thought NBC was trying to send him another contract or something. Pick up that call.
And if we're on that matters of Jason Jensen, Jason Jensen's ancestor, he's from a deep Mormon family. His ancestor Jensen, Dylan Morton's ancestor Mortensen, and her kinfolk Grub Truck Mortensen, that guy working in the grub truck that night. All of those folks, their ancestors were all traveled together and joined the Mormon Church in 1854, I believe it was, and traveled to America and across America to land where they're at today. Why are they all involved in this? Scott Green
There's
falls in that same
nepotism
department.
in that area, like just
Well, Scott Green's
extreme.
grandfather is, I think his name's Leon Doc Green, if I recall. He
You
is
are
like
correct.
a well-known, some kind of legendary person. He did something at UI. I don't remember.
He was the
Maybe-
athletic
You're
director, I
telling
believe,
me
when he
there's
There
a
you go,
duck and a comer in the same family?
Doc, D-O-C,
Oh, Doc. Okay, I'm sorry.
Dr. Comer.
Yeah, but no, there is a Twin Peaks environment. There's a deep heritage with all these
Very.
folks, but
Yeah.
why is it that 170 years ago the Greens, the Mortensons, and the Jensens knew each other?
Interesting.
Well, that's the thing about the area is the Sasquatches tend to disappear and reappear at will when it's the right time, and it's
Well, that's why I won't visit there, sir. I'm scared to death of Sasquatch.
Idaho's different. Also,
why
it's
are
a
you
totally
seeing
different vibe
Sasquatches?
because you have such isolation. I mean, you have these towns that are surrounded by, rolling hills, and there's a lot of deep roots, and they tend to not kind of clash with the transient students that come in and out and cause trouble. And that seems to be a real strong loyalty. Like
It's a very
badge of
much
honor.
us against them
right, the
environment
badge of honor
there.
to be like a native, like a old school
Well, sure.
original.
That's what Steve G always says, right? The other thing Steve G always
He's
says is
wrong.
gag orders are for matters of national security, and that much I agree with him on. So
Yeah.
if I may direct us back here, Phil. So you've
Yeah.
done a lot of true crime readings and stuff. You've read you've discussed the motives here a little bit as perpetrated in the propaganda of Howard Blum and James Patterson, Vicky Ward. So one of the elements when you're reading a true crime book, you're looking at motive, right? You're looking at means, motive, and opportunity, essentially, right?
Yeah.
In a broad sense. So the lack of a knife, right? Was that they didn't really address that in the book, do they? They didn't really draw a lot of attention to that matter, do they?
No, I feel like they glossed over that. And again,
Pay
even
no
where,
attention to the lack of the knife, right?
yeah, I mean, you have that in there. You have the fact that what's the best that they can get. You have the car that's in the vicinity at one point. Like, I think they said it was an older car than what Koberger drove. And then they're like, well, it could be his year. And, you have that. And then where his cell phone might have pinged at in and around. A lot of it just feels like they're still trying to solve it, even though they already have him arrested and have him as their guy. So they're trying to make the pieces fit, even though objective people can read it and be like, I'm not convinced. I wasn't convinced when I read Bloom's book at the end, and I'm definitely not convinced after reading. I'm even way less convinced after reading the Patterson Vicky Ward book. You don't have to be
That's interesting. You came in with a very
see that there's issues,
Yeah, no, I'm tracking, sir, and that's interesting because you came in with a very clean slate as far as knowledge of the case. So that your analysis like that seems to drive home the point of the propaganda that's going on here. They're not even selling you on that with your limited knowledge of the case. They don't even make a strong argument to somebody off the street with limited knowledge that this is an actual event that occurred in the manner in which it's described. So, and again, we can look at the details from these books, like the lack of the motive. They're saying the incel thing, the stalking thing. And Kane and Jenn and I have discussed that at length of how numerous instances the state has actually, Bill Thompson said himself in court, public hearing, because a lot of these things aren't public, right? A lot of the filings aren't public, but he says that they were never stalking them, right? So if that's the case, then why later then Thompson and the state readapted their plan and evolved it into, oh, well, he was stalking them 12 times before. Now it's 23. Now it's 23. So
except the one day
we
that
see
his
this
phone
kind of
came,
juxtaposition.
but he wasn't there. Like, what's that all about?
Well, that's what the PCA said, and then the PCA again. Thompson stood up at court one time and said that it's no longer relevant. he argued the grand jury was the only relevant. The grand jury indictment, the PCA was no longer relevant because the PCA's got so many problems,
to say the least. Idaho has some weird statute with the grand jury indictments. It's something about, I have to look it up and explain it correctly, but something to the effect of it could be like kind of edited or like rewritten. I have to look it up.
I'm not familiar with that.
Anything about that? It's some weird, unusual law that they have there. Andrea Burkhart was talking about it, I believe.
That's interesting. I don't think they addressed the grand jury much in the. Oh, I take that back. They did address. There was a little bit of grand jury in both books, wasn't there?
There definitely was in the Patterson book. They get into the grand jury.
Yeah, I think Blum claims that one of his sources was a grand jury member.
Yeah, I think Blum spoke to at least one or two grand jury members. Are those the same ones that I guess talked to Steve allegedly or something?
I mean,
like
nobody on a grand jury should be talking to anybody. So that's
right.
kind of the problem.
But if you go back and look at his texts that were leaked, the messages with him and that TikToker, a lot of stuff kind of lines up as far as things that he knew that we now know to be true. So
I'm very circumspect about those circumstances because we see also now they're trying to was it Nye or maybe Blake or one of them was trying to say that they're still doing this investigation into the leaks. Come on.
Yeah, right.
I think grand jury leaks they leak like a sieve constantly. I mean, how many times can you hear on TV a grand jury, like when they hear about something from a grand jury before a grand jury presents its, whether it be indictment. Like I remember years ago, what was it? I was in New York and it was, the Sean Bell shooting, the guy who was shot. I think it was his bachelor party. He was at a strip club, black gentleman who was shot and killed by the cops. And I remember the grand jury.
I remember that one.
Yeah, it leaked, constantly. But yeah, no, they get into that in the Patterson book. The other thing I was going to say in terms of how and it wasn't in the Blum book that I remember, but in the Patterson book is when they talk about the Facebook group that was discussing the murders and two friends.
Jen's got a lot of thoughts on that group.
And how they think Kohberger was in the group. They never say it. They never trace it back, but they believe someone who had these theories and was shutting other people down was Kohberger. Meanwhile, you have the fact that later on you have a little bit of the drama between the two moderators, the two creators of the group, who eventually split over trying to monetize what they were doing. Because it's all about money in the end. Yeah.
Let me tell you a quick little tidbit about that Facebook group. Coincidentally, and I say that very sarcastically, that group is not only the one that Papa Roger was posting in, it's also the one that was given the "What did you say to Adam" footage, and the Corner Club still shot. So I guess they just got that lucky. I mean, I don't buy it. Like they were also the only two that were going on some kind of like media tour. They were on News Nation a couple times, and they weren't getting like talk crap about, like all the YouTubers and everyone else is all this armchair detectives, blah, blah, blah. But then these two moderators of that group were treated like they were like the best thing, but they just happened to get lucky. I mean, those three big pieces of evidence, I guess you want to call it, but I don't buy it. They're plants. It's all propaganda.
And they were also in that Paramount show too, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Paid actors for sure.
Well,
part of the central casting.
Yeah, yes, sir.
But your delivery on that, they're still looking for the leaker. It's like it's just like OJ is still looking for the real killers. They're still looking for the person that leaked.
First of all, Sir Orenthal James Simpson did not do it. Right. So he may very well still be looking for that real murderer, and even his ghost today might still be looking for it.
He's a paranormal detective, literally from the other side. Stormy, if you put your favorite color Kane in the chat, then people can vote by putting 1, 2, 3, or 4. Most people like red Kane the most, but there's yellow Kane, green Kane, and blue Kane. She was
So if we
alluding
can get
to
off
my
the type
color
2
changes.
diabetes conversations with your candy canes for a second.
As long as there's no coat.
We mentioned earlier 2 points I want to follow back up on here. These are the 2 main books, right? But if anyone goes on Amazon and looks, there's about a dozen or so other books that have been published on these topics of the Idaho 4 murders.
Yeah, probably AI written
or independent, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that one we talked about with that other author, I think was more independent, but let's face it, there are, I think, just like Blum had, what do you call it? Like the CV, he had that sort of background to write it. Patterson, he like I said, he's kind of gotten into the nonfiction genre. You pair him up with Vicky Ward, quote unquote investigative reporter. They could have just, some of these are almost like assignments. Like, hey, like you could either write kind of like screenplays on spec, or you just, it's an assignment in some form. I think, and true crime, let's face it, it's a genre that is addicting. That's how you have investigation discovery. How you have an episode of South Park called Informative Murder Porn. Like it's people gravitate to true crime. And unfortunately, the problem is with true crime, they want to tie it up in a nice bow when it's over. They don't want loose ends. And I'm gonna say it from, and again, I have law enforcement in my family who I love to death. However, you cannot have a conversation about an investigation that's open-ended.
Right. So that's a great point.
There's so many questions, period.
That's a great point. Yeah. As I'm scrolling through all of these self-published books that coincidentally got published like the day after the guilty plea.
Yeah, they're ChatGPT generated. It take like 2 seconds to write.
Yeah.
Courtesy of Wikipedia.
They probably didn't even like proofread it.
Yeah. And we see that in Bloom's book. So I even listened to a interview with Blum, and I believe it was an attorney named Andrew Myers, who does a lot of Idaho 4 stuff. He did an interview with Blum, and he kind of put Blum to the attorney test there in his questioning, in a roundabout way. It seemed. I don't know if he intentionally did it, but
yeah,
I think Blum caught on to it because he got a little butthurt. He's like, "Well, how did you do all this, that, and this?" And then still conclude Brian Koberger did it. And then he's like, "Oh, look," he goes, "Look, Brian Koberger did it." So that's the conclusion reached with all these authors, Blum, Patterson, etc., before they even write the book and their quote unquote investigative journey. And I think Blum cites 300 plus interviews, and I think Blum and Patterson both cite 300 plus. I don't know who they're talking to in a gag case to get information. I realize they say family and friends, and then they won't really divulge any information.
Everyone that retired, probably.
Right.
Well, but again, one problem here, if I can state, just sorry to interrupt.
Yes, sir. No, please do.
No index, no bibliography, like no notes. Like, so in the end, it's like, are they going to put something to it? I mean, do you need to get someone else?
No credits for references and stories or anything like that?
Acknowledgments at the end, but it's very, I mean, I'd have to go back. The Bloom book I got, it was like a Kindle version. I got like a PDF. Mostly because of COVID. Mostly because of COVID.
You're showing your digital age with that one, Phil. Kindle. I don't think people can remember that.
I like Kindle.
I mean, I like Kindle for books I'm not gonna buy, pretty much.
Right.
But because I'm a purist at heart. But when it came to one of the review companies with COVID, that became, instead of them mailing me books, it became, okay, we'll just send you the PDF. So for the most part, it translates pretty well, but some don't. Like when I had my original Kindle, now it's like the Fire, but the original Kindle, they didn't always pull over. So it was like the most painful reading of all time. But yeah, with Bloom's book, it's like, I don't remember it being very heavy on notes, but then again, out of the 230 plus pages, there's more notes than what's at the end of Patterson and Ward's book.
Because Bloom's was technically like articles, right? And then they put it all into a book. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like, I mean, he wrote a series, right? But like, I didn't read all the whole portions of it, but it seems like, he didn't really fold all that up into the book. He kind of just took a meta-analysis and ran with a glossier narrative of the incel and stuff like that. Because, there's no evidence of those things. So again, they want to. Yeah, they do. No, they absolutely contradict themselves. They contradict their own selves in their own books, but they contradict every narrative as well.
It's like,
Well,
did you
just to
forget you
bring-
said this, buddy? Because I didn't. JJ,
Well,
real
just-
quick, I sent you on Twitter a screenshot I took of one of the girls on the Amazon series, Josie, of a TikTok she posted, and it says, "We're being ghosted by a best-selling author right now," and I'm just assuming it's one of these authors, that probably Patterson, maybe. If you want to look at the date, I think it was like December in 23, something like that. So just to give everyone an idea of when they were doing interviews of these friends, quote unquote.
Well, so Blum admits that he was on ground in Moscow as early as, I think, November 30th.
Shit. That's early. But then again, if he was working for Vanity Fair, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, he said
He
he
was doing
learned
it
about it on
Vanity Fair.
Thanksgiving, and then he said that he called his buddy Graydon Carter, and they're like, "Let's do it. We're going to do it on airmail." And he got on boots on ground, and he publishes his first article in that series on airmail on January 7th, the day after Koberger gets there.
How convenient.
Well, just to go
Very
back
well
to the
timed,
whole, when I mentioned Dominic Dunn, part of the whole thing, like the evolution of like Vanity Fair, New York Magazine, a couple of those that Condé Nast publications, was having Dominic Dunn cover the murderer of his daughter. Like that kind of got that whole thing going, because he was known for his connections. He was a guy who was known for being like amongst Hollywood, but then his daughter Dominique was murdered by her boyfriend, and then they asked Dunn, because he was already kind of known for being a writer, to start covering his daughter's murderer's trial. And that kind of led those publications, specifically Vanity Fair, because I know Dominic Dunn did work for them, to that. And then kind of Graydon, because it was Tina Brown who was at Vanity Fair first, and then later it was Graydon Carter. They kind of kept doing that because the true crime narrative does sell. Now, whether
for sure,
the truth or the salacious, pick one. I think probably more the salacious than anything else. I think they go for the blood and guts as opposed to the truth. And to be honest, I'll go off another guy. I think I mentioned you before, JJ. And there was a guy named Ron Rosenbaum who wrote about Danny Casolaro back in the day, and then specifically said Danny Casolaro, he killed himself, and then slashed himself enough times.
Convenient conclusion, right? Convenient conclusion.
Yeah, he slashed himself enough times to say it was the octopus. That was his whole,
right,
ignoring everything else in the case. So,
do you know who Danny Casolaro's childhood neighbor was? James Jesus Angleton. He lived next door. And it's even more interesting. You look into Casolaro. His father was running a biotech company that had developed one of these early night vision goggles. That company's literally listed in the congressional hearings in Iran-Contra. That was run by old Dr. Casolaro there, who lived next door to James Jesus Angleton. These strange circumstances, indeed. So, I think one thing Danny Casolaro was doing was investigating his father.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me in the least, and we're 2 days away from the anniversary of his death, along with a certain other infamous person, but who was in jail at the time of his death.
I'm glad you pointed that out. So the trial was supposed to begin tomorrow in these matters, and tomorrow would have been the anniversary of the Manson family murders, which again, the Gooch, ISP detective Victoria Gooch, aka the Gooch, who was not mentioned in either book, and played a very integral part in the investigations, as we learned 2 years after the fact. And her father was the underling to Sharon Tate's dad in military intelligence. So, and by her admission, her father went undercover with Colonel Paul Tate to investigate that murder. They went just a couple military Army intelligence officers, dressing up as hippies and investigating shit. So that's how the story goes. And she admits that was there. But of course, that's not the only Manson family connection, because Graydon Carter, Howard's boss, their mail in Vanity Fair, is actually the close protege of none other than Cocaine Bob Evans. Not to be confused with Bob Evans, the Sausage King of Ohio. That's different Bob Evans.
And he convinced Evans to write his memoir.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right, sir. And he selected Graydon Carter to be the executive producer for the film version of that memoir.
Yep, kid stays in the picture. Yep.
Yes, sir.
So they were close associates. That book. Yep.
Yep. And we see it's old Cocaine Bob there that is the one who brokers the marriage between Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. And it's important to note they're all processed church members. So that is a very interesting aspect of these things. And, you know, before we go any further here, I want to get back to some of the timeline next is presented in these books, because the state has painted numerous disparate timelines that conflict with one another. You know, DoorDash was ordered then, DoorDash was ordered then, the roommates got home then, and they all sat in a bedroom upstairs talking about ordering food, then they sat in the living room ordering food, and we have gaps of time where the state's never told anybody where some folks are at. And, you know, then we see the narratives painted by Blum and Patterson, and they paint some very, again, they don't comport even with the state's narratives in regards to some of these events. But if we can hold that thought here, as I'm sure Jenn and Kane have a lot to input on that as well, I just want to introduce you there, Phil, to another man in Moscow, a fellow by the name of Doug Wilson. So Howard Blum highlights Doug Wilson in his book, blames Doug Wilson for a lot of shit, seems to, right? Do you recall the mentions of the Kirkers, as you think he calls them there? The Christ
Say
Church?
that again?
The Christ Church, Doug Wilson's Christ Church.
Yeah.
I think
the
Blum
ones who were
calls them the
suing
Kirkers.
were suing the police. There was
Yeah,
a whole
Supergate.
Yeah.
You know that on the list of evidence, there was a USB that was labeled for a Canon Press, which is Doug Wilson's publishing company.
I did not know that, man, but if we can just hold that thought so I can introduce Phil to Mr. Doug Wilson here.
Oh.
Happy November. Whatever you do this month, don't feed the trolls or the feds. Don't let them feed you. Don't take the bait. Don't play with fire, but burn whatever bridges you need to burn.
That's Pastor Doug Wilson of Moscow, Idaho. He's also the pastor for the current Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. That's an interesting aspect. But so we see the Canon Press. We see St. Andrews University there. That's the college for the Christ Church folks. That's who released the What Did You Tell Adam video that Jenn was mentioning before there. And we see that Howard Blum, not Patterson, I didn't see that in his book. Blum highlights Doug Wilson in the Christ Church quite a bit.
Patterson mentions them, and at some point, what wasn't there something going on with like his grandkids? I think, or something. There was like some sort of charge. I think maybe even related to COVID. Something.
Yeah,
you've come to the right place, sir. Jen's got a lot of details on those subjects. Please, ma'am.
Yeah,
I think it was his son and grandson, if I remember correctly, and something. Yes, during COVID, unmasked protests or prayer groups were ticketed, and it was this whole issue. They were putting Stickergate, yeah. So they were like the first ones ever to be prosecuted, I guess, for putting a sticker on a pole.
So one of the officers involved in that Stickergate, Phil, who demonstrably hid evidence in that case, is involved in the confirmed early response, because once again, the painting different timelines with the victims and roommates and whatnot, we get painted different timelines with the officers, and no one's put out an effective sight picture of the police response to that matter to my satisfaction. All I see is a bunch of disparate nonsense and propaganda, schizo in and schizo out. But one thing we do see there is that same officer is on ground there, and we see in March of 2023, a very interesting week in March and timeline of events in this case, but we see the state filing a Brady Giglio motion talking about matters that might impact this case regarding withholding exculpatory evidence. And again, we have an officer involved in the scene that has already done that in Stickergate. Didn't see that in the book, though. I saw a lot of blaming these folks, but it seemed like a one-way narrative. It seemed to me like they're only going to paint Christ Church, and I'm not saying I'm not sharing my opinion either way on those matters. I'm just saying, like, Blum really focused on saying that had they had the trial in Moscow, Kohberger would have been, acquitted. He even said, I don't know if it was the interview or the book that I'm getting that statement from. He says that Kohberger would have been acquitted. That's why they had to move it from Moscow, because the Kirkers, the Christ Church folks there, as he calls them, would have acquitted Kohberger due to this quote unquote war they're in with the locals. It's a weird take.
It's a weird take, but I mean, there's also, so again, it's been a bit, like I said, since I've read the Blum book, and again, it sucks that the Patterson book has no index, but I remember the whole thing with with the Christchurch, and everything in it, where there's the framing of the church with the mass, so once again, you're kind of the narrative of, well, only insane people would be against masks, because once again, we got to keep beating the dead horse of COVID, 5 years on, and the fact that some of that stuff has been completely shown to be batshit crazy. But we're going to keep piling dirt on that and everything. But here's the thing, like change of venue, when the whole thing about change of venue is you can't get a fair trial in that area because every juror has heard about the case. The whole thing is someone who's able to render a verdict impartially and not be influenced by the media, word of mouth, all these other things. You need to have change of venue, but at the same time, it's like reading enough about the case, Patterson and Ward kind of see any motion put forth by Kohberger's lawyer as stalling. And meanwhile, it's like, well, maybe that lawyer is trying to get the information, because in the end, a lot of the stuff doesn't add up, and everything you're trying to use to tie Kohberger to the murder is not even circumstantial. It's very marginal. It to
say the least, right?
It's a fantasy.
Yeah, it's shit. It's James Patterson could have done better. Alex Cross as an investigator could have done better than what they've jerry-rigged. And they get into the whole thing about, oh, James Fry had it so tough. He's getting emails from people who are giving him shit. He's do your fucking job. I get it. You're not used to murders. Fine. Why do I give a shit that you're getting people who are emailing you, telling you need to do your job? Do your job. That's it. I don't want to hear it after the fact. I said, I've heard there's so many cops who don't complain, don't make their cases their burden. It was a high-profile quadruple murder. You had the fact that the cops are saying one thing, the university, you had the whole thing with who's issuing the stay-in-place order as if someone was stalking the campus. You have the fact that what is going out there? Is it something for the students' safety, or is it to make the university seem like they know what they're doing? It's a shit show. From
that's an accurate assessment. It is a shit show.
And to be honest, the murder, I'm sure it's been said before. I think I said it when I was on Occult Rejects a couple weeks ago. I had done the fact that it was 1122 King Drive, right?
King Road. It's technically sits on Queen Road, but its address is King Road, right?
Yeah, 1122, so and they talk about King Kill, that whole aspect. And what was it?
In that regards, so we got a lot of Jacks here and Joker kind of characters, right? So we got a lot of Jacks in here. You got the Kings and the Queens and the Jacks, right? Yep. You got a lot of BKs.
You got a juggler. You got the Joker, Enon, the juggler.
That's yes, ma'am. That's who I was thinking of. Enon, correct? Yes, we have the
Joker.
Pet
my cat?
And you got enough pictures of Brian Kohberger's eyes looking crazy like James Holmes and Adam Lanza. That was the eyes. When they take the picture where it makes their eyes look like it's bulging on springs to try to depict that's a killer. I'm like, that's just a bad picture. All they try to do is incriminate based on a picture. You know how many people would go to jail based off shitty pictures?
Right.
90% of us would be in jail. My son would be in jail just for taking a shitty picture. That's kind of that's just so not.
Well, they incriminated him for the selfie, right? The selfie taken after the fact. Now we've heard the investigator say, well, there's thousands of those selfies with the thumbs up on his phone. And we see Blum in his book say that, mentions that there was he's describing the internal nature of the crime scene, if he calls it, there at the apartment of Kohberger on Washington State University campus. And describes one element that we see in that same selfie later. That Blum says there was no shower curtain. The whole bathroom looked like something had been cleaned up there, and almost inferring the shower curtain was used to transport something, right? We see in that selfie, though, there's a fucking shower curtain there. So,
There's no injuries on his hands or anything, but then you have a report that came out. I guess they interviewed someone that shared his office at WSU, and he said that he had injuries. Meanwhile, he was a foreign student, and I guarantee, because it was right around the time that you have all these issues, or they're deporting people, and all. I guarantee it had something to do with that. Guarantee it.
Yeah. Isn't that weird that his constituents at the university, they were all Chinamen?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
Did you read the report where they said a neighbor said they saw BK sitting outside in the steps with like a biker, some dude with a Harley or something?
I did see that.
These are entertaining tales there, right? It's kind of like the stripper tale, right? Wasn't there a stripper tale in those reports?
Oh yeah, there's a stripper tale. Yep.
And then there was another witness that said they saw somebody that may have looked like Brian
But
where the
8 years
Snake
before.
River meets the Clearwater River or
Yeah.
something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, and they didn't look at them, so it was odd. And
Yeah,
that was
my
I
favorite-
don't know if they try to relate that to the Costco that he went to, but Rosemary actually asked a good question. I don't know how familiar with the case you are, Rosemary, as far as explaining the plea deal.
Oh,
Quickly,
dude, that's not a serious
it's-
question, dude.
it's
That's
a
not
little
serious question.
difficult.
Let's not derail the.
Well,
the
it's
conversation,
good
sir.
because if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you
Well,
don't understand.
Please,
Right?
I don't. You are correct, sir. I do apologize. Please dock my hula burgers next week, and please continue.
One hula booger down. I think what you have to do is look back to, I think it's like November 23rd or whatever it is, when you guys were talking about the timeline discrepancies. That's when things changed, because up till this point you had an extreme amount of pressure on this law enforcement agencies. They couldn't figure anything out. They were ill prepared to investigate it, and then all of a sudden they got the name Brian Koberger from the FBI. The car changes, the timeline changes, all the stories change, and they just wrapped it around him and thought, oh well, he's autistic, he looks weird, he has
He's
whatever,
got
it's gonna
eyebrows.
fit.
He drives an Elantra.
He has eyebrows, and so when you come to the plea deal now, you have to remember we went through years of hearings and interviews with police officers that were doing the investigations, and every motion that was filed by his defense attorneys was struck down with vengeance, with a personal attack. And
chastised for.
so she got to the point where the final motion, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, was when she presented the fact that there was, with that, because she's a great lawyer. I feel like if she had more time to invest, she could have presented a stronger case. But when she presented that there are facts that show there are alternate suspects to the court, and they literally brushed her aside like a pissant, then she was like, okay, we're going to take this plea deal now that they offered back in whatever, and now we'll have to get you to another court level. The problem being is who's going to approve the appeal. That's the biggest worry moving forward. So I hope that answers.
Nye, I think. Didn't he say that he works in that section? Didn't Nye do
the name
interview?
keeps popping
I
up
believe
that
you
it'll
are
be
correct,
Nye.
but I think it has to go through the state system and whatnot first.
Something
But
like that, yeah.
his only hope is the U.S. Supreme Court. So
Well, he did say he would look forward to being exonerated at the very beginning, remember? And to be exonerated, you have to be convicted to begin with.
Well, it's funny, Jen, that you say that, because
I don't know that he ever said that, though, right? You know what I mean?
Well,
Right,
there's a written
we're
statement from
told.
his lawyer in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, I believe
Yeah.
at least
I got
that.
questions about that Monroe office, because that Monroe office has been representing his parents for some reason.
It's a different, it's not the same guy. It's a different lawyer. I forget the
Different
name.
guy, but same office, man. He's a county.
Oh.
That guy's a county prosecutor. The county public defender works in, very much in conjunction with and maybe the adjacent office, but same building. And that county public defense counsel defender is somehow representing the Koberger parents.
And then you have the whole Mancuso issue, that whole drama, which is a whole other story. So you're right. It's probably something fishy over there.
don't give it to JJ
It's all
that
propaganda.
easy.
It's all propaganda, man. I don't want to quote witness protection Larry too often, but It's all a hoax.
I mean,
That's what witness protection Larry
it's
says.
got to be. This can't be real life. And Kane
Right,
gives
so-
Ian a lot more credit. I mean, I believe she's a talented lawyer. I think she's a good lawyer. I think she knows what she's doing. But I don't believe she did her. I think she did just enough to show on record that she was doing it. But if you really read the orders coming from the judges, they'll say something to the effect of like, okay, well, you made this argument, but you didn't show exactly, like the details weren't there. Like she did just enough.
Well,
It could have been more style than substance.
Exactly.
There you go. There you go. That's a good.
Like,
I mean, that's a reasonable assessment. I think if I may add 2 points though, is the state was still handing discovery over after 2024, a couple Baker's dozen maybe motions for discovery, supplemental motions, handing over discovery after the guilty plea. And also in June, I think this was also an integral point, besides getting like where your head's at, sir, with the, the fact when you can't get any alternate suspects involved and, the judge is declaring in public statements and public hearings that one of the reasons he denied those, alternate suspect theories, because again, as I tried, we discussed on the Purge many months ago, going down the alternate suspect route is very much a big mountain to climb, but it's even bigger mountain to climb when you're dealing with Judge Hippler, who tells everyone to go fuck themselves. But he says a couple times, but he, in regards to that, they file a motion. I think it was June 7th of demanding access to evidence. So I'm assuming the access to the evidence, which they still have not gotten, is the knife sheath, the alleged knife sheath. But that's my assumption on that matter.
I don't know why she didn't just make the argument plain and simple. There's no way to tell the length of the blade that was used. Period. You can tell the width and if it's serrated or not. That's it. You cannot tell.
Well,
so the sheath doesn't mean anything. And the crime scene was contaminated. Like those are two basic arguments that I really never heard her.
Yeah, that's my number one, Jen.
make.
Just that you have that 8-hour delay, which is clearly.
Well, don't forget, on top of that,
out.
you have the coroner didn't show up till after 5 p.m., I believe. Then you have the, I'm sure it took at least a few hours to organize transport to Spokane to the medical examiner.
Sure.
That's more, that's additional time. I'm sure they refrigerated the body.
Well,
but
you
still.
now have a lot of people that believe that the crime started at 2, and
I would
maybe
not be
Xana
surprised if it was the
and
day before, honestly,
Ethan
at this point.
were first, and then whoever it was laying in wait, and they don't want that released because then it fucks up the whole narrative. Brian Koberger was in Pullman at 2 a.m.
For sure, dude. For sure. Let's put a pin in that real quick because I want to go back to this timeline and the events leading up to these events you're describing right now. And we'll get into that in a moment. But Phil, what was your take on how Blum and or Patterson sold the events leading up to these matters? The activities of these students in the days preceding, the 24 hours preceding, that kind of thing?
I feel like Patterson and Ward dived more deeply into it. Again, where like Blum's was kind of more structured, kind of like procedural. Patterson and Ward were kind of getting into more of like, what was it? Maddie and Kaylee, like they were almost graduating, as opposed to Xana and Ethan, who were like still underclassmen at that point. And we're talking, it was a big game weekend, even though, Idaho's football team was kind of like,
it was the last home game.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting, even though the team.
It's big over there. Apparently, all the hotels get booked like a year in advance. You go to the corner club; it's like shoulder to shoulder. This is from a local on Reddit that said this, so it's a big deal over there. I mean,
it's a big deal for a team that's never gonna, in terms of college football.
Booze, that's what they say, right?
True, very true.
Booze is that's their motto.
They really dive into, okay, so at one point, Kaylee and Maddie are at, they're getting food at the, they're
at the corner club, then Grub Truck.
Yeah. Yep, Grub Truck. And then still, is it Xana? Xana, right? Because they say by like Xanax, like Xana and Ethan are at a party. Yeah, they emphasize that in the in the Patterson book. And I was trying to remember the name earlier. I'm like, shit, because I'm like, she was like the person I was like, the person where it's like, oh shit, like I feel bad for anyone who's ever, outside of someone who's like a piece of crap who is a murder victim. But I said, like, I feel like when they introduced Xana, I'm like, oh shit, this is the person who like you're going to focus on. And like, I'm like, no, all 4 of them were victims and it sucks. And it's like, but Xana was kind of like the one they were like kind of hitting on even more, kind of like,
Sure.
like that really wrong person in the wrong time sort of thing. But when they were talking about that, they're like, yeah, they're at this party and the texting back and forth and all these other things. And like Ethan was one of a triplet, right? I mean, It was like him, his brother.
Well, they're
what's his
twins
brother's
now.
name? Hunter? I think, or
It's
something
Ethan,
like that.
Hunter, and Maisie. Those are the triplets.
Yeah. I just
A lot of
remember
hunters.
Maisie was the one who told, I think, Dylan to shut the fuck up the day because she was like crying or something like just being hysterical or something along the lines.
That's in the Bloom, maybe. I don't remember.
That's in the Patterson book. That's in the Patterson
Really?
book.
I didn't get to that part.
I
yet.
missed that
I
part.
think it was Dylan.
What it was the surviving roommate Dylan heard the
Unharmed.
ruckus outside her room upstairs and told Kaylee allegedly to shut the fuck up. But then afterwards, she didn't try to communicate with her other than trying to text, apparently.
She texted her and said, Kaylee, what's going on? Which tells me she heard something going on.
Well,
Right.
Just not to, I mean, no, it's actually in the chaos afterwards when Chapin's sister is just getting there. And I think Dylan was being hysterical.
I missed that one.
And she told her to shut the fuck up because
Right.
she wanted to know what the hell was going on because she had no idea. She was far removed from the whole.
Right, her brother called her over.
Yeah, and next
I'd
thing
like to tell
I'm like,
Dylan to shut the fuck up.
Wait, if I may,
to call 911 all of a sudden, finally, like, right? Like, okay, now we're scared. We weren't scared before.
Yeah.
Well, again, all of those narratives of being scared falls apart in every angle, except for unless you're reading a Bloom or Patterson book. But the when we're talking about the siblings and other activities and these timelines and the lack of knowledge of where these folks were and what they were doing, this message is for you, Kane. It's Fridays. We do Buffalo Jared on Fridays, sir.
How dare you, sir? Deny me that song.
JJ, you know my opinion on all that. Like, I have a lot to say about.
Well, we know the Chapins were over there, for example, by their vehicle being parked there, at least one of the Chapin siblings. We know Ethan Chapin, despite being told he lives in this fraternity house, we know, in fact, it's been released now through these books and other reports, from disregard the police reports, he had an apartment somewhere because he had not been allowed to, he's been suspended. And that brings me to my next point. Well, how are all of these folks, I've said this so many times, and it makes no sense to me still, how do any of these folks attend a fraternity or sorority party when they've all left their organizations? And we see that narrative painted even further in the Patterson book with the fact that Kaylee and all the rest of these, Kaylee, Madison, and Zane are all on the outs, is the way Patterson paints it. And that Dylan and Bethany can't even go to that quote-unquote formal on Friday night as a result of being friends with these folks. Well, none of these details make sense to me.
And on top of that, their sororities are the only two that were on probation at the time for health and safety violations. So, like, that's a hell of a coincidence that the only two that survived are the only two that not only had no police contact via Ethan's traffic stop early in 2022 or the noise complaints, but the only two that survived are the ones who had no police contact that year and also were still in good standing with the Greeks. Like, that is
there you go, man. That's the greatest common denominator right there.
Huge.
They're the ones in good standing, you know, and now we see in this book they're selling us a beef. Patterson, is that your take
that
on the
bullshit? I'm sorry.
Well, I think it is. I think all of it's bullshit, man.
That were what is he trying to say, that they were like pretending to go to the dance or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I know you got a lot of details on the facts of that matter. If I may get Phil's response on how he took the perspective he took on these circumstances, because it's a Mean Girls fight of sorts, right? Is that your take on it, Phil, with these relations as Patterson sells it?
You know, there's one part where they basically say, like, they're getting all dressed up and yet they're not going anywhere. You know, like there's you know, like there's certain things where it's, you know, like, just thinking back, you're reading it and you're trying to be objective, and then you're getting all dressed up for something you're not going to. So you're signaling like, hey, we're going to this formal, but we're not. And then, you know, we're going to go get schwacked anyway, which don't get me wrong, I'm completely in favor of.
You know, it's Friday night. It's Friday night, Phil. You got your Borg on. You got to get your Borg on.
Well, you know, hey, got to get your grumpy shirt on. You got to get ready. You got to get, you know.
No. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
No, with that whole story they're trying to sell, if that's the case, if it was just a joke or they were just pranking,
what is that story, Jen?
Why would Kaylee go so far as to tell her, oh, you know, I got invited to the Pi Phi formal? Like, you can prank your friends and, like, you know, play your little games with your friends, but, like, what was the point of, like, lying to your mom about it?
Well, if I may, so the circumstances, if anyone's unfamiliar with it, including reading Kane Bo down there, I just want to make sure you're still with us, sir. Have you type 2 diabetes out? Are you in a coma? Okay, thank you. Thumbs up is good. So, you know, I think that the circumstances we're talking about here is, you know, we're sold this one, you know, we're sold multiple narratives when folks got back to the house. We don't know where they were doing beforehand. Patterson does a somewhat detailed job there, but when we're getting to these matters on the 12th, that is, we're getting these matters the 11th. It's, Friday night, the 11th. It seems to be just as equally as important to me because, as you point out, Jen, the dubious natures of this quote unquote formal. Now, Patterson saying that they were never going to the formal. They were just trolling the Pi Phis about going to the formal. Again, how Kaylee, not a Pi Phi, not even seemingly at outs with her sorority and living with former Pi Phis who've quit the Pi Phis. I don't know how any of these folks are going to any of these parties in the first place because we see Zaina's allegedly over without Ethan at the Sigma Chi party, according to Patterson as well. But my point being here is on these matters and the weird and disparate nature of all of these different narratives that we sell is, you know, it's strange to me that, you know, there's this now a new narrative around this alleged formal event on Friday night. And it's a formal event that Kaylee Gonzalez, confirmed by her folks and other sources since then, that Dylan Mortensen made quite in this Patterson book, for example, and I think the Amazon as well, that she made a concerted effort to get Kaylee Gonzalez down to campus on that Thursday, the 10th, correct?
Right. And that's like the only photo of her and Kaylee together is the one where Dylan plus one. Like, I mean, besides like the group photos, but like doesn't look like they were really friends.
So that being said, what are your thoughts on what actually occurred there, Jen, on Friday night? Was there an actual formal? Was there any evidence to support these claims?
No, I believe a lot, if not the majority of these photos that are being presented online are repurposed. I believe during those 8 hours, a lot of it was deleting certain photos and just if photos are taken, for instance, there's a lot of disposable cameras, at least 2 that I remember listed.
No, there was more than 2, man. There was a lot of disposable cameras. You're right.
They're only allowed to post a certain aesthetic publicly. So you can only post certain things because you have to present a certain look and, like I said, aesthetic. If you're in a sorority, they don't just let you post what you want. So these kids use film. They use actual cameras because they still want the memories. So I believe, just in my opinion, I think a lot of these photos are either Photoshop, AI, whatever, and or repurposed. So they're, if you have everyone delete their social media within a certain, week or so before, and then you just post them, now you can present them as happening on that day. But you can tell in some of them, you can see the flash, the glare on the picture on like Instagram because it's a picture of a picture. You get what I'm saying?
No, I'm tracking, man. I like where your head's at, and we do see evidence of that. What you're describing as well. In the Bloomer Patterson book, I don't recall, maybe Phil, you recall, Zaina Kernodle or Madison Mogan was the social media manager for the Pi Beta Phis.
I think Maddie was the social media for the Mad Greek. I don't recall the Pi Phi thing.
I could be getting that mixed up.
I don't remember.
I think she was. Go ahead, sir.
Zaina was the little sister
Brunette.
of. Yeah, she was like the little of.
Yeah, she was the little. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because she was only like.
Who was her big? I can't remember.
Hold on. 1 second. I'm sorry.
I know. Maddie was Bethany's big sister.
Well, because remember, Maddie and Kaylee even though they pledged the same sorority, didn't get into the same sorority. The
Right.
sorority, the whole thing was to keep them
Right.
basically to break them apart. But
for sure, no,
go ahead.
that's what they cite there,
Yeah.
right? And Patterson, I think, says that Ethan was gonna, or Zana was gonna be Ethan's big. I'm like, how does that happen?
Yeah. But that whole story
I
about
don't
keeping
know,
them
dude.
separate is I call BS on that too, because
Mhm.
there's a couple of friends of the victims in their circle that if you look back at their old photos, like they went to high school together and like they were very close. There's photos of them when they were teenagers, obviously close and friends. So they didn't separate them. A lot of them are in the same Pi Phi or Pi Beta Phi, whatever you call it.
There was Kaylee was in AP and
Yeah.
Maddie was in Phi Beta.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry,
Kaylee's
now and
story
then I
had
gotta
a
look at my
big,
notes.
has a lot of around the same time frame, was having a lot of issues nationally with, there was some scandal. It was basically leaked that they have a certain grading system as far as looks, like they just want a certain look for their members, and during
I think it's called the Kane metric. I think they call that
something
the Kane
like
metric.
that. Yeah, bald. They like the bald girls.
No, you've never seen his intro videos. He's always scouting out new talent.
Oh yeah, always. I've heard a lot of the ex-girlfriend stories. He's got a lot of them.
That's all it is. It's an illusion to that.
So
I've never
Kane-
seen you look away once, though. I noticed that you notice when they're in the reels there.
I don't appreciate these accusations. They're
How did I get
baseless
there?
and unfounded.
Plain dumb. How did I get there?
So Zana was in Maddie's sorority.
Right, Xana, Maddie, Bethany, Dylan were all Pi Beta
So-
Phi.
Xana was
Bethany's
Maddie's
big.
little.
No, Maddie was Bethany's big, I thought, and Emily is
You're right.
Dylan's big. So
Well, allegedly, there's evidence.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's disparate evidence on Dylan's status as Phil. My input, and it kind of goes in line with some of the stuff Patterson's selling, even though he's not selling it that way. Is these women were not invited at the Pi Beta Phi. And I don't think Dylan was an actual Pi Beta Phi member. So there's evidence to support these matters. So one other thing it's interesting is both Blum and Patterson are happy to cite the drug culture. Specifically, I think Blum highly cites the Greek community there on both campuses. And if you look at the actual evidence of law enforcement reports of drug reports and
No reports.
Well, no, if you look at the actual citations issued for drug possessions
Yeah.
in both Pullman and in Moscow, the focal point of all of the activity is, in fact, the Greek rows of both cities. So Howard Blum does make some solid points in that respect when he makes those assumptions and assertions. But we find more and more details from the police reports about drug stuff. A Mexican cartel dude was, apparently a suspect at one point that no one had ever heard of. Like, nope, we've never heard of him. The entire drug task force was like, nope, we've never heard of him. But we see all of those matters going on, and there was an incident in Pullman, Washington, at Washington State University, circa 2012. I think it was the Alpha Kappa Lambda fraternity, and they had employed, by saying they were trafficking a high volume of cocaine, not this cocaine down here on my associate Kane B there, but cocaine, like Cocaine Bob Evans cocaine. And it was the ringleader of which was a fake student and a fake fraternity member, pretending and LARPing as being a student and fraternity member. The only folks who didn't know he wasn't a fraternity member was like 3 or 4 people within that fraternity, in fact. They even compartmentalized, well, according to all the court records, they were like, oh, we didn't know, but no one outside that fraternity knew. It was pretty clear from the record. So
he wasn't like a undercover. He was just like someone, just a non-student, just pretending he was a student, basically.
100%, man. He was the same age as the rest of them, same peer group. Wasn't a member of the college ever, was never a fraternity ever. He was hired in some capacity to work in this operation. They never really got down to what the machinations there. But what I'm saying is, Dylan, I've done a profile on Dylan, and her characteristics fit the same profile.
Interesting. And also at the time there was issues in Pullman with drug drinks on Greek Row. There was articles in the Evergreen, and they were trying to like raise money to buy like the women those I think it's like a nail polish or like a bracelet or something that can test your drink. So it was an ongoing issue. And being that it's so close, they love to say how they're so
That's right. I
intertwined.
remember you bringing that
An
up.
issue over there is going to be more than likely, or maybe things are getting too hot over there. Okay, let's start drugging drinks in Moscow. I don't know.
Well, just to reference like Greek, the sorority fraternity sort of culture, like they're notorious for pranks or just flat out just being piece of shit.
There you go. Hood rat shit, sir. Hood rat shit.
There was a book I had read years ago that was about, I want to say it was like the University of Montana and sort of the culture of like date rape, like stuff that was going on with the athletic program, but also like drugging drinks and things like that. I mean, I went to, a state school, and I remember going to frat parties and remembering when people, like girls, would say yes, would get drunk off like 2 drinks, and it wasn't because they were lightweights, it was because they were doing something to the punch.
Right.
For sure.
If they weren't pissing in it, because that was the other aspect.
Well,
but
there is a culture of that, though.
Not
there
his.
Well, so where I went to school, there was like a few infamous frats. There was Teak, Tau Kappa Epsilon, and there was Sigma Chi. They were both pretty infamous in their own ways. Teak was something where later on there'd be some guys who were WWE guys later on be there, but they're capable of things, and it's not all of them. However, there's a certain mentality that all's fair until you get caught.
Exactly.
For
They're
sure,
capable.
for sure. And there's some fine examples on this specific campus of these matters there in Washington State and University of Idaho. And I believe my associate reading Kane B down there has a wonderful story to share with us in those matters, with the incident of that one fellow that got nearly murdered, right? Nearly got murked.
In regard to what? I'm sorry.
The mob near murking of that fellow there on campus.
Timmy Reed he's talking about.
Oh, my
Timmy
soapbox
Reed
issue. Yeah, Timmy Reed.
There was a similar incident also in Pullman, by the way. I'll send it to you guys later. So it's a thing. Maybe they're retaliating, possibly. I don't know.
Well, there could be a lot of that, right? There could be a lot of that. But I knew I needed to wake up reading Kane B down there from his lullabies, because I know he likes to talk about this specific subject with the Timothy Reed case. I think it is a great example of what we're talking about here, of this, very compartmentalized culture within these organizations that are on that specific campus.
Well, if I may, JJ, I'd like to credit Phil with a great take on the go fuck yourself or shut the fuck up incident, because it adds finally an element to realness of that scene from what we've been hearing over and over and over, where that's probably something that one of us could probably picture ourselves seeing, because here she's come out of the house crying, and then they don't know anything. Why are you crying? Because somebody's passed out? You're bawling your eyes out? It doesn't make sense. And then they go in with the act that nobody's seen anything, and I don't know, and all this. But as far as the reaction that what we've heard in the media tries to portray is that this town is just shattered by this tragedy. They're trying to move on, leave them alone, give them their space. Yeah. And then literally 2 years later, or a year and a half later, you have a mob of football players go and beat Timmy Reed nearly to death in his own home party with pipes, and they're wearing masks. The same baklavas or ski masks that the killer that we know is well publicized was allegedly wearing in the house. So you're trying to tell me that this is their riz, that's how that they roll, that they're so broken up about it that not only are they beating the shit out of people, they're pissing on the murder house, and they're leaving voodoo dolls and all kinds of weird shit at the memorial.
Don't forget the lamb. The 4 lambs.
And the 4 lambs, which was just weird. But not only that, the university shows its own true self by going ahead, waiting to start the investigation till the holiday weekend, which was coming up, and then everybody's gone, nobody can be questioned, and the police never did their own investigation, so none of the players were even named, and then they, of course, never charged anyone, and they completely just swept it all under the rug. So it was like that was when, and the real beauty of that story, as far as Timmy Reed goes, is that somehow, even though almost every single person in this chat right now had their head stuck up as far as you could go in Moscow's ass, they covered that story. They buried that story for 2 months before we even heard about it.
And I think those are salient characteristics and points to make, given the environment, culture, and quote unquote authorities in this town and their activities and behaviors.
And how they cover up for the school. That's the biggest thing I got. And think about this. They went after the two Christchurch affiliates for stickers on poles, but they didn't do anything for these people. Like, are you kidding? And it was, as far as I remember, there was video footage of some sort and plenty of witnesses, obviously. I mean, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh,
well,
that'd be a great FOIA request to do. Christy Nevada's always egging me on to get some FOIA requests, and so are you, Jen, of that night, because the police were there. And this guy was, I mean, if you see the pictures, I might have one I'll share with you in a minute.
It's bad.
He was really beat the shit out of.
Like broken orbital bone, like seriously, like not just a couple punches. Like he was.
Well, not just him either. His friends were also.
And he was at his home. Like they came to him.
Well, listen, assault.
I don't
if I went to Moscow right now and punched some dude in the face, I can guarantee you I'd be in jail for assault for at least the next 10 years.
Well, sir, if you have eyebrows and you drive an Elantra, you're my number one suspect.
I do. I'm halfway there. I don't know.
Just a white sedan in general.
I've never seen my Elantra come up tan though, and I do have a silver Elantra, so I don't know.
So if I may piggyback on your all statements regarding these matters, there was an incident circa 2004. We'll call it 2004, over in Pullman, Washington, where a Washington State University professor got the shit kicked out of him on camera.
I remember that.
Yeah, and they had it on camera, and they didn't catch the people until some folks from Seattle called them in. So they've never been. That's the tip. They got a tip from Seattle. There's two college students in a townie. That townie was involved in the meth trade. Or I'm sorry, I'll do a Kane B's The Purge, tribute, the Skittles trade. So he was involved in the Skittles trade. So I don't know if the professor was involved in the Skittles trade or whatnot, but nonetheless, they didn't initially report the Skittles business. You had to get deeper into the reports about those matters, but they got a weird tip from Seattle, but it was all caught on camera. And the reason why it was all caught on camera was a federal grant to the Washington State University, where the criminal justice program, the doctoral students, that is, dictates that program for the undergrads to monitor those cameras on the weekends.
Yes, I read all that whole thing was crazy, and they have like a room somewhere in some strip mall or something where it's offsite where they can like monitor these cameras that are put all over, and that makes me think that little shack across the street from 112
a real crime center, maybe.
Well, that's certainly possible, man. But if you extrapolate those circumstances I just described with that professor and the way they covered that shit up too, it got real funky. But if you consider that a PhD student's running that program back in 2004 for the undergrads, sounds like that might have been something potentially old Brian Koberger was doing here in these circumstances in that similar or same program as it's evolved over the years.
And he saw something he shouldn't have, or he wasn't supposed to. That's always been my theory, honestly. The whole WSU connection, it just seems all roads are starting to lead back there.
But we see a massive cover up, and in the books there, Phil, did you see much? Say, what was your impression on the university's impact, University of Idaho or Washington State, for that matter?
So what I was just thinking as I'm listening to what you guys are saying is just thinking about the importance of kind of that, what do I want to say? The distinction of what the university, things happen in college towns. I went to Albany in New York. We had a shooting in one of the lecture centers years before I went to the school. The year before I went to Albany, a co-ed went missing from the area where people went to go get buses. She was never found. There is, I think, where like state schools, things about where you get funding and the fact that you want to hold up a certain reputation, distinction. You don't want anything that's going to make waves.
Of course.
Right,
and
right.
So where you have,
it's like the oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say it's like the Jaws mayor, right? He's like, there's no sharks in the water.
Yes, yes, no sharks in the water, because meanwhile the mob is funding the town.
No report.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good
Yeah,
one.
it's just it's a friendly neighborhood Mexican cartel leader down the street. No big deal.
No one from here can do wrong.
You know, sharks
Only
in the
people
water.
from outside cause problems.
If it wasn't
It's
for
a
the
safe
university,
place.
the whole town would implode. The snowball effect would be detrimental. You're either working there or you're attending there, or you own a business that depends on the people that work there or attend there. So
right. Another interesting thing about the Timmy
seriously
Reed case, Jen.
Yeah.
Remember, we tried to call his lawyer, Tim Gressback, several times, and finally one day they answered with this snotty tone, and they're like, "Aren't you the one that keeps sending the emails?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." And I'm like, "May I speak to Mr. Gressback?" "Well, he's busy right now." I'm like, "Well, can you please leave a message?" And he never got back to me. And then so I pursued it a little further because I feel like it's pretty important. And I called the pizza parlor that Timmy Reed, the victim's dad, owns in Lewiston. And of course, just some girl answered. And she's like, "Well, he's not here right now." And I left a message and my phone number. And so it just goes to show that even people that are clearly getting fucked over have no interest in speaking. There's just this tight clamp, like a pressure dome on that county. It's
I wonder
wild.
if you would have called
that's a
and
great point.
said you were local, if they would have responded different. Like if you would have gave them a local number, I almost guarantee they would have.
Man, it's interesting. It's possible. If I may, Kane, that's an excellent point, sir. When you spoke to this man and called his office, was he sharing the coffee shop with Jason Jensen?
No, he has his own office there in Moscow. He's a legit dude. And they seem to be starting a media campaign when it first happened, right? After the fact. And I thought that given the time span between when it happened and when I called, it was over a year and a half, that he would have had time to really, speak out. But maybe they just wanted to put it behind him. The thing is about that family, he was a 5th generation Idaho University Vandal, and he donated a lot of money to, ironically, the football program. And so, they held a yearly fundraising concert that was scheduled to be done in a month after the crime, and of course he canceled it. I believe he's I would assume that at this point he's broken all ties with the university.
There's a possibility that a lot of these universities have your fixers, your damage control guys,
and the frats too, definitely.
Alumni.
Your boosters, everyone thinks boosters just relate to athletics programs. If you have enough distinguished alumni, who's to say you don't have people running cover for every little thing? I mean, when we were talking about the thing with frats, like frats commit crimes. And again, I'm going to give you some.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you the name of someone who I like who got involved in a hazing incident. John Hamm from Mad Men has been implicated in a hazing crime where I think he either paid restitution or got named. The Albany, someone got like electrocuted and killed doing like some sort of walk. Like they were merciless. That's
a lot of window falls.
I'm so glad I never went further than just going to Hooters for
sure.
Introductory. Those
are some great points, Phil. And I just like to may interject here with the public safety announcement. Butt chugging is not a crime. However, these fraternities are notorious for it. And, you don't want to do it. Even despite Coomer Scott Green, he was the butt chugging champ of 1984 there, but allegedly. But I don't recommend it. I don't condone it.
He was on the alumni board before he even became president. So even in New York, he still was pulling strings.
One of my good friends, my first couple of years at school, got involved in a frat, and he got arrested. And actually, I'm not going to give his name, but in terms of connections, he does have a tangential 9/11 connection in certain ways.
Shit.
He wound up getting arrested for something he did with the frat, and he was going to cut ties, and then the frat begged him to come back. And I remember just being like, fuck it, why would you still want to be involved with them, sort of thing. I'd go to frat parties, but I never understood that loyalty. Yeah, it's omerta. You're dealing with like a secret society mafia thing.
Yes, sir. And I knew you know what we're talking about in that regard. So let's evaluate the circumstances as you're describing relative to a different college campus, Sarah Lawrence, an all-female campus. And this happened. Well, this happened not far from there, right? No, not far from there, though. It is interesting. I want to see where those tie in. I've never found that tie, but there's not a lot of information available either. They kind of swept this right under the rug, but. This grizzly bastard was living in an all-female college campus in an all-female dorm, running a sex trafficking operation of those students, including his daughter who lived there and was a student, and for over 2 years. And then when it all came out, a lot of the folks are now suing the university because when it all came out, there were so many calls to the university's provosts, everyone in the chain of command from these girls saying, why is this creepy old fuck in my dorm room or my dorm building? So what, people are getting paid off. There was, I can tell you right now, there was at least 2 administrators that have been pegged for being paid off in that circumstance, according to those civil suits. There's a lot of malfeasance there, but there are folks, what I'm getting at there is there are folks that these things do happen in our modern era in these universities. And it's so blatant. For 2 years, this dude's getting calls to the police, the provost, everyone. Probably called the janitor. So the janitor say, "Hey, someone help me out here, man. This old creepy fuck, not you. This other old creepy fuck's in my building." But no one did anything. No one did a damn thing. And there were so many reports. Well,
it's about avoiding embarrassment.
People think it doesn't happen, but it happens a lot.
When it comes to universities, when I mentioned like the thing with Montana, and their like date rape epidemic, it's avoiding embarrassment. No one wants a reputation. Before I started at SUNY Albany by, I think it was Playboy, back when Playboy mattered, was voted the #1 party school. Now, by the way,
I remember that.
There was no metric to it. They interviewed a bunch of drunk guys outside of bars, and they're like, "What's the #1 party school?" Albany. I went there.
Yeah.
I
read that. I'm like, Albany, dude. I've been to Albany. Come on now. Let's be serious.
I went there, and the first time I got let in without an ID was after I'd been kicked out for falling down the stairs. But that was because I was also like 6'4", 6'5", and they were like, "Go on in, sir." Like there was a certain aspect to where they would give you that distinction, but also you had the fact that one of the bars I went to was owned by the wife of a cop. So like there was certain things that kind of led into, hey, #1 party school. Well, it's with access.
It sounds like, if I may, sir, it sounds like you helped contribute to that status. Oh, and I respect that. I also like the party.
I underage strength. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, no, like, but at the same time, I never did anything that would have been like some of these other issues. Like there's certain things where it's like not even just a laxness, but it's enabling behavior because there's a money aspect. Athletics are a huge aspect to schools funding. I don't know how much fraternities and sororities lead to. The one thing I do know,
big time.
The one certainty that I knew of from going to SUNY was you get 5 people who share a common interest, and you go to a certain entity, and they will fund it. And that's how they funded a Go to Denny's club, and that's how they funded a S&M club at my school.
That's
well,
weird.
You bring up a good point, Phil.
That's weird. That's really weird.
When you ask, like, Jen, you
remember? And the God.
Wasn't
right?
it 70s?
No, I don't doubt it, but it's weird that these things conglomerate in that capacity. Go ahead, MKane Ultra.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that is what. Wasn't it like 72% of the funding comes from the Greek Road? Isn't it at University of Idaho?
Yeah,
right? Something, a very high number, and only like a 6% comes from tuitions and classes and stuff like that. So when people ask why would they cover up for the fraternities or a fraternity member or in general, well, money. And so all along this case, people have been saying following the money. Now, when you talk about these essays at fraternities, which obviously with Rufinol and all these things, or Skittles, I'm sorry, is a common problem. You have more now. What's shifted, it's to a grooming process. So when you say you have the draw of athletes, you have the draw of a young person being able to have her first Truly or a neutral or a Bud Light, and this is exciting to them, and so now they have a party scene they can grab it to. And somebody in the chat even said tricking out the sorority girls, and in some aspects that may be true. A lot
of evidence of that, Kane.
So now it in the past, Jenn has done a fantastic job of showing exactly how over the decades and centuries that, or I'd say eras even, they've gotten better
at covering,
at hiding their crimes. Because before, somebody died falling off a balcony in Daytona Beach. They died over drinking. They died. Now they drown in 1 inch of water in a stream. And I'm telling you, if there's one takeaway I have from doing true crime comedy, it's that if you commit a murder, do it and put the body in the water. It just completely baffles all the investigators. It was natural cause.
It's because of the
they're in the water.
This is a public safety announcement. Public safety announcement, sir. We don't condone any of these behaviors here. These are not the opinions and views of Operation GCD. No, I'm just joking with you. I
don't promote it. I'm just trying to allude to it.
Do you guys remember
You're making some solid points, sir. I'm just giving you a hard time.
That resigned after like 3 months on the job at UI because I can read you a quote from him. I sent you the article, JJ, where he said, "I no longer believe this is an environment where I can work on issues of student safety. The safety of our students is the primary concern of the Dean of Students office, and not being able to address concerns through our already established policies and agreements takes away the effectiveness of what this office can do. So basically, you guys are going to let me do my job, so I have to resign." And that's a well-paid job. He was only on for 3 months.
A lot of benefits, too. You get to be the daddy of all the sorority girls.
Right. This is after a fraternity did something wrong, and basically he resigned over an issue of punishment, essentially.
No, you're spot on. And if I may connect those two things with old Coomer Scott Green, the alleged butt chugging champ of '84 there, and the financial constructs and the boosters and these Greek organization. So that dean of students went to war with the Greek council. I don't know who these folks are, whatever they are, but in early body cam footage, in September of 2022, when Brett Payne and gang were there, they're like, "Oh, well, you don't want us to tell the Greek council, do you?" And they're
For
like,
minor
"Oh, we'll go to the Greek
things.
council."
Minor issues. They could lose their funding. They can lose their housing. There's a lot of consequences, potential consequences.
For sure, but
they use it to threaten.
Well, there you go. And my takeaway, that's exactly right, ma'am. And my takeaway there was the law enforcement doesn't really want to get engaged in those kind of environments, and they don't have to, right?
But we're going to tell your mom.
Right, but they don't want to do it. They're just saying these things because it's clearly been a butthurt process for them, like it was for that dean of students. So then we get to the nature of the power in this town, who's running it. And you said before, Scott Green was already on the board of directors before he came back there. And again, he was a frat president, and he also was the butt chugging champ, probably.
So is the governor of Idaho. He was
a butt chugging champ too.
Well, I don't know, maybe.
My bad. He was a frat guy.
He is very deep rooted. His family's very deeply rooted in Idaho. His grandfather's known as the Sheep King. I'm talking about Brad Little, obviously. And he's UI alumni.
Yep.
You got pictures of him at the Corner Club. He's in the same fraternity as Hunter Johnson, who was on the 911.
Hunter Johnson.
Yeah.
Who discovered the bodies.
Exactly.
He's the one who went into the house.
He discovered them twice.
Yeah,
maybe 3 times.
Well, don't do a spoiler alert, sir. Let's Phil.
So
what was
they're
your
really
take on Hunter Johnson and his activities?
That Phil may know. Do you know that Scott Green, his parents owned 1122 King Road at one point in like the 70s, I think? Ain't that a coincidence?
No, he lived there as a child.
Yeah, it's referred to as a childhood home.
Yeah.
And they didn't come out and say that. They just admitted it once the media found out. But that's a hell of a coincidence.
Can I just add one thing with 1122 King Road? How about the arguments over the destruction of the house?
Oh,
I
think that there was something on site that they
you just bit a big apple there.
They were guarding and had to destroy.
Dig in, bud.
There was. I mean, shit. I mean, just thinking back to how quickly they demolished the Murrah building or the Sandy Hook School. Sorry.
Whoa.
But
right.
whoa. Just quick as they want to get rid of evidence when the time comes, there were people who wanted the house preserved. So to get clues. No. It's the memories.
How about Lincoln's car, right? That was destroyed by the following Monday.
Well, how about the fact that they cloned JFK's Lincoln? There's certain things.
That's what I'm saying. How about in the Orenthal James Simpson case, they hosed down the murder scene within 12 hours?
Yeah.
They hosed down the murder scene, but yet the clothes were, I think, got moldy. I think the murder victims' clothes were not taken care of.
That's a standard procedure. It also is in Idaho because in recent police stats, they lost all the forensic evidence of anything because the fridge went bad. True story.
Yeah, there was a lot of other issues. The phones. There was issues with the phones taken from one department to another. Oh, we're going to send it to Washington. Like, what?
In Los Angeles, they use a garden hose. But in Idaho, they use a pressure washer.
When they want to preserve the evidence that pushes the narrative, that'll be protected. When it comes to the inconvenient, it'll disappear like the 18 minutes that, the Watergate tape, the smoking gun. It'll be like, what happened?
The missing Jeffrey Epstein minute.
And all of a sudden you see like shade of orange or something in the tape. Our memory hole just seems to be very conveniently shifted.
We want to forget, Phil, though, don't you? When you come home from work, you don't want to hear anything about anything. You want to sit there and open a beer and have a pizza and laugh with your family, watch a movie.
Ignorance.
Well, you know what? I want to forget the dreary. I want to know the things that make your mind hit a light bulb. Like when I have a day where it's like, oh shit, I want to remember this moment. I'm there. I don't want to remember the same shit that I just dealt with the day before. But if you're telling me my train derailed, oh shit, because I take a train like a few days a week, I'm in. But if you're going to tell me, oh, the train sucked, someone smelled sitting next to me, yeah, no, forget that.
There was a
Right.
bum.
Yeah, no,
He
I
wouldn't
want
leave
the
us alone.
anomalous. I want the anomalous. Give me the bingo card moment. That's not the media. The media will just bury it. And in the end, they'll be like, so in the case of the Idaho 4, well, yeah, no, they'll give us the anomalies in Brian Kohberger's life. But in terms of the victims, well, they won't give a shit. They'll just bury it. And whether we talk about who's standing behind Kaylee and Maddie outside of where they were ordering food, or if there's a possible issue with an ex, they're not going to deal with it. Or why are the Goncalves is so into, they're pushing it while some of the other families step back. And what is going on with the Facebook groups? Why are they saying that Kohberger contributed with no evidence? Oh, he knows these things. Well, did you trace it? You've traced everything else, but oh no, we can't trace whether he was posting off something.
He could have been home and pinged. It covers a 27-mile radius. He lives 8 miles away. I mean, come on.
Here's the thing at this point. Our government knows everything. I already say to my wife, I'm like, I guarantee you, based off the Patriot Act, they know everything I've ever read. I said, and I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Well, let's be honest, Phil. You are an agent of the Dewey Decimal System, so I mean,
true.
Be on their
Very
list.
true. I invite everything. I invite it all.
But they've seen it all, so whatever.
Yeah. Here in America,
That's one of my favorite
either,
Seinfeld scenes when the library cop is coming to collect the past due book.
Right. That's what I think, dude. That's the exact reference in my brain hole when I make that joke. But no, seriously, I do. In all respects, there, sir, you do. And I just saw the comment in the chat. You do are a wealth of information on a variety of topics, and I like the details. So Hunter Johnson, what was your take on it? If we can close these things out on the Hunter Johnson escapade, the crime scene, and we'll look at a little bit of them photos, including the
I thought we were purging.
murder. Well, this is not the purge, sir. This is the purge invasion of Operation GCD. And here at Operation GCD, I'll play Buffalo Jared all day here, buddy. You watch me. Now, is this the purge, Kane? Is that what's going on here?
We have two songs on the purge. I don't see why you couldn't. You also have that other song. Was it like a Bob Dylan song that I liked a lot?
I'm not saying this in any form.
I'm just putting in requests to the DJ. If I need to slip you 20
your introductions
burgers.
last between 37 and 94 minutes, and I never know what's going on in life. I'm new, and I don't know what to do. I'm trying to keep it tight here on Operation GCD Fridays. I like to highlight Buffalo Jared and his escapades as well, So, I like to be an equal opportunity, escapade.
I think Twiz is going to rage quit if you don't play
I think he is, dude. I think he is, but we can close it out on the 4 murders as well compared to some of what we're seeing here. You mentioned that one earlier, Phil, when you're talking about the bloody crime scene. That's what you said came to your brain hole, right? Was the infamous Wonderland murders.
Just in how, so the opening scene of the Patterson Vicky Ward book is like the cop, what's his name? Fry coming in, seeing his cops looking like they just saw Wonderland. And from everything I've been told and read, was the murder scene that brutal? Yeah, no, it was not that. And
this is the least graphic image of the scene. I was keeping it down, taking it down a notch here.
I mean, let's face it. Wonderland was organized crime with an assist from John Holmes.
Not only that, sir, that Greek fellow, that the club owner that was running that kid diddling club there in Hollywood in the 80s.
Eddie Nash.
Eddie Nash, yes, sir. He's connected to some of old Sirhands, old double Sirhands.
Well, and then you throw in, who was the lead investigator on Wonderland?
I believe that was Tom Lang.
Tom Lang, who, by the way, wasn't even name checked.
Winner, chicken dinner, because old Tom Lang would later go to bat for Eddie Nash later, come 20 years later when Nash gets prosecuted. He would say, oh, Nash, he's not a bad guy.
Well, do you know who shared the role, of Tom Lang's character in Wonderland?
Oh, shoot. I don't remember that one.
He played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that. It puts the lotion on its skin or it gets the hose again?
Yes, hose again. Put it on the
Well, he
goddamn
also
top.
played Voldemort in Harry Potter.
So
No, it wasn't Ray Fiennes. It was Ted. I always forget his
the
last
guy
name. He
who
was in
introduced
Monk.
Dancing with the Stars. That's the same dude.
Oh, was I wrong on something?
Really?
That's a
Wait, what?
Yeah, the announcer for Dancing with Stars is Buffalo Bill.
Shut up. Really?
Not
I
to be
never really
confused
watched
with
that.
Buffalo Jared. Not to be confused with Buffalo Jared. Walks in the pathways forged by Buffalo Bill.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, with shit. Yeah, no.
I got you derailed there, Phil. I apologize.
You know,
No.
they I think Fry or what's his name? Roger Lanier. One of them came out and did an interview and basically said the crime scene at 1122 was so horrific that they literally had to set up some kind of peer counseling for their officers. So like, are you telling exactly me? But yet, the pictures that we see today are just like they're really not that. Like, give me a break.
Ted Levine. Yes, Ted Levine.
There you go. I couldn't think of his name either. There, I had to look that one up there.
I knew it was with an L, but I didn't want to say it. Well, because he was also he's been Crime Story. He was in the last. Movie
Dude,
with,
he's been in everything, right?
Tupac, one of Tupac's last movies, Bullet with Mickey Rourke. But yeah, he was in Wonderland because he's such a good actor.
He did a medical drama named Wonderland also. That's weird.
Well, when he found out that Richard Ramirez was obsessed with him, when Ramirez died, he was like, fuck that guy. And yes, he was also in The Alienist, which was a great historical fiction about one of the first serial killers.
Yeah.
Which they'll never do again because The Alienist was one of the most expensive mini series sort of shows of all time, even though they did about 2 seasons. But yeah, his name is
Shutter Island, dude. That's a creepy one, right?
Yeah. Oh, Shutter Island was great. Dennis Lehane, that was MK Ultra sort of.
Yeah, I was about to say that gets real deep into those subjects, right?
Oh God, yeah. But yeah, with
oh shit, that's right. He played Bloodbath McGrath in Wild Wild West with the old Xenu's finest actor, second finest actor, Will Smith. He played the infamous Confederate general there in that film, which was an interesting. There's a lot of interesting esoteric shit in that film as well, I do believe. But this guy's an interesting. It is odd these characters folks play, right? He is a well-known character actor, and he's done a lot of weird shit.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, as much as you and I both know about films and characters, I couldn't think of this guy's name either. But he's always in everything, right? He's doing a lot of things, but staying under the radar is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, I mean Monk. Monk was a great show, and
that's right, dude. He was. I
love Monk.
He was right.
Yeah, he was Stottlemyre. He was.
I didn't know he was in all these things.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was one of those.
He was
guys
Monk's detective boss, right? So let's that's an interesting character as well because there's a lot of weird shit in that.
The Monk is with the guy who's like OCD or like.
OCD. Okay.
Yeah, but he was at the same time.
Yep.
It was at the same time where old Cocaine Bob's underlings were pushing the psych detective agenda on USA Network, invented by Bob's underling Barry Diller. Barry Diller, all boy really Thanksgiving Island Adventure. Barry Diller.
Barry Diller. Barry Diller is an
interesting guy. On Netflix. You would love it, JJ. It's like right up your alley.
What is it called?
Untamed.
Oh, I've never heard of it nor seen it.
It's good.
Definitely check it out, man.
Yeah, a lot of
we saw Monk and Psych at the same time. There, right? The same network. That's what I'm saying.
Psych. The first few seasons of Psych were really good. Then it got really.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
Oh, I love.
It got really cheesy.
You know what? Psych was heavy in pop culture. Pop culture references, things like that.
Yeah, TV's different now. Like TV back then was so much better. Like you had all these great iconic series, and now you don't really have much.
Well, so I'm assuming. So who is a child of the '80s? I know I am. I'm assuming JJ is. All right. So I grew up in the Michael Mann, Stephen J. Cannell, so Miami Vice, Hunter, sort of realms and things. I'm like,
you know the bank in Miami Vice intro scene you see there? That was the bank that F. Lee Bailey and Leon Black were funneling all that Iran-Contra BCCI stuff through. Same bank.
Have you ever read The CIA, the Mafia, and George Bush?
Ooh.
No.
Nope.
Pete Bruton. You got to read that book. That is a good book. The only part that I would say you need to take out of any book that you read, if they reference a book called The War of the Godfathers, you need to take any part of that out, because The War of the Godfathers was a fictional book written by an FBI agent. And people cite it as nonfiction. It's a historical fiction. It's not, because I read it. I mean, it didn't happen. It took aspects of
style fiction, right? It's a Bloomer Patterson style fiction.
it was written by a guy named Bill Romer. Bill Romer was an FBI agent out of Chicago who helped. He worked on the Top Hoodlum program, and he shadowed Sam Giancana. However, he basically said later on, he's like, I had to tell people it's fiction. Like, Vegas was an open city. The mob didn't go to war over Vegas. They kind of set that tone early.
Right.
But even I read it at one point. I'm like, holy shit, the Bananas went against the Chicago. No. Chicago outfit basically at one point took over Vegas.
For sure.
Now here's the thing. It's like when we go to Vegas, everyone was like, well, Howard Hughes cleaned it out. Yes and no. He took out guys like Mo Dalitz. However, you can't say the mob is gone, because then you have the Stardust and Tony Spilatro, and there was still elements. And to be honest, one of the people in
Sands.
One of the people who was called my uncle, who was a close family friend, worked in Vegas. He worked in the food service industry, and he actually worked, I believe, with Trump at one point, and served catering purposes. He was like, the mob was there. He's like, the mob was always there.
Oh,
if
they're
they weren't
everywhere.
in the casinos. He's like, they were in the food industry. And because people are like, oh, Steve Wynn. Steve Wynn's not mob. Steve Wynn's father was a bingo operator. Steve Wynn's dad was mob connected. Steve Wynn had a mystery death on a boat that he was on that involved the guy whose wife was a courier.
Totally normal.
For the mob.
Totally normal.
So it's like, yeah. And to be honest, like, look how Steve Wynn, Trump, and Sheldon Adelson were all fighting for control in Vegas.
There you go. I was going to say, because the Jewish mob really runs, especially out of the Chicago outfit and Lansky and folks like that, they're really running the Italian mob, and it's those folks that passed on their heritage to Adelson.
Well, and they speaking of sort of like a gatekeeper, there's a book called Little Man about Meyer Lansky, and that whole book, and I read that book almost 30 years ago by a guy named Robert Lacey, and Lacey speculates, Meyer Lansky went bust after Castro took over the casinos. I'm like, the most intelligent man who knew facts and figures. There was only one other guy who was as smart as Meyer Lansky, and he was a guy named Otto Berman, who was connected with Dutch Schultz. His nickname was Abadabba, who knew all about numbers. Meyer Lansky wouldn't have just been like, oh, all right, I'll just, pack up and leave.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't, if correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't keep things on the books. He owned people, right?
Yeah, Meyer Lansky died in 1983 of natural causes, as opposed to Luciano, who dies of a heart attack on the way to meet a screenwriter, Bugsy Siegel, you know how he goes, and Frank Costello died of natural causes about 10 years before Lansky did. They said Lansky died poor. He didn't. Meyer Lansky died probably at net worth about $300 million. And he turned over control to a guy named Alvin Malnick. And Daniel Hopsicker, the late Daniel Hopsicker, was very well attuned into the continuation of that empire. And I see someone just wrote, who killed Susan Berman? That was Robert Durst. Robert Durst killed Susan Berman, I'm pretty sure of. And Susan Berman was the daughter of a gangster named Davy Berman, who helped take over the Flamingo.
And Durst of the infamous... go ahead. I apologize, Phil. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying Berman was one of the fathers of Vegas after Bugsy Siegel. It was Gus Greenbaum, Mo Sedway, Davy Berman. And Gus Greenbaum would help take over the Flamingo with Sedway, and Berman would make it a success, try to retire They would call him out of retirement. He said no until a close family member would be found dead. And then Greenbaum would take over the Riviera, make it a success, but then wouldn't leave, in which case they'd find him and his wife dead with their throats slit.
Well, that's
But
normal.
not in Vegas, because, you know, the quote was, they never kill in Vegas, which wasn't 100% true. They would just kill outside the city limits.
Well, of
They
course,
built
right?
that
Did they get
meat
the
up pretty good.
did they get the Colombian necktie? Is that what they got?
I mean, they slit his throat. They slit his wife's throat. Anybody else they're still finding in Lake Mead, as Lake Mead's drying up. Because Tony Spilatro, when he would show up in Vegas back in the early 70s as Mr. Outsides, the guy who'd look after the
Joe Pesci's character from Casino, right?
Joe Pesci looks more like Tony Spilatro than he ever looked like Tommy DeSimone in Goodfellas.
Oh, for sure.
Because Tommy DeSimone was 6 foot tall.
Yeah,
Tony Spilatro was the little guy. Like, he was the little guy and the pissant. Those were his nicknames.
And he worked for the Jewish mafia, as we're describing here in these circumstances. So it is interesting that Berman, I am familiar with that, and I do think a lot of these matters are very targeted. So Robert Durst was kind of an early adopter to the Transpocalypse multi-state assassin campaign that would later be followed by folks like Buffalo Jared Revisa, my former stalker, who wanted to stab me a bunch and wear my skin as a human coat. But, because I think a lot of those things are targeted killings, and they're not just these random things. And Robert Durst, of course, is from the infamous Durst real estate family there in Westchester County, New York. A real den of iniquity there, Phil.
Well, here's another interesting thing. They did, what was it? The documentary, The Jinx, that was on HBO.
Yeah.
And the guys would tape him where he said, I did it. I got away with it all. Those guys would later on be involved, in my opinion, in a kind of like a snow job on The Wilderness of Error, Errol Morris's book about Jeffrey McDonald.
Oh, my goodness, Phil. Phil, I just read that book. I got a lot of thoughts about Errol Morris. He's one of these processed church cover-uppers, if you ask me. But friends with time.
I don't believe Jeffrey McDonald did it. I mean, truth be told,
not even a little bit. No.
There's the Ted Gunderson aspect to it too,
well,
and Morris.
I know Ted Gunderson.
Morris calls Gunderson batshit, and I'm like,
he is batshit. Let me give you an example of that. That's an excellent analysis. Jen, Kane, do you know Ted? Let's meet Ted.
There's thousands of Americans out there. By the way, I've been shot with a laser beam twice.
They got Ted with the 2 laser beams. They got him.
Where's Bronsky in this whole thing? No, it's interesting you say that. And when you go back to Cuba, I kind of had a epiphany as far as Schindler's List goes. Imagine how easy it was for you to take a fellow mobster that had wronged you or whatever to Cuba with you, and then they disappear in the Bay of Pigs, and you come back, oh yeah, they didn't want to come back. He liked the banana daiquiris. There will be no gorillas in the swimming pools. And so when the mob lost Cuba, that was a big hit.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, well, but then again, so the story goes, Castro nationalizes the casinos, and yet the one person who is kind of held in the jail is Santo Traficante, who we still don't know 60 some odd years later, I mean, from the event, where his loyalty lie, even though he pops up in the plots to kill Castro, even though the only mob guy who was ever seemingly genuine in the Castro hits was Johnny Roselli. Sam Giancana wanted the FBI off his ass, and Traficante might have been playing both sides. I mean, Traficante managed to live to 1987.
Well, now you're dipping into Tampa territory, Phil, and Tropicant was pretty famous. And my dad, just one of the memories I have of my dad, he would pick me up on the weekends, and he'd drive. He was a city planner, and he would always show me what the areas would be that they'd mapped out all of Hillsborough and Pinellas County. He worked Hillsborough by the end of the 60s and early 70s, and we would we would go to Ybor City, and there's a restaurant there called the Columbia Restaurant. And he would just always say, that is where the deal was made to kill Kennedy. I mean, like, it was fact. And that brings me to another point. When you talk about the government knows things, people that work for the government, JJ knows things.
I don't work for the government, sir.
Listen, JJ, don't make me clone you. Hold on. And
are you cloning me, sir? Is that what's going on? Is this the purge?
You can't rage quit your own show, dude. I've got 3. Oh, I put a message in the back chat for you, by the way.
I seen it and I've willfully ignored it. What do you need?
Fair enough. There are people that I've known whose fathers were sheriffs or these type of things, and there are a series of like videos and facts out there that they all know that they share amongst each other. For some reason doesn't make it out into the mainstream. For example, my friend's dad was the sheriff of San Diego County. They had a video that, if you remember seeing the one where it looks like the driver pulls out a gun at that stop line by the sewer drain and shoots Kennedy, because if he wasn't dead by that point, the whole thing was fucked up.
Are we talking about the driver? Are we talking about Greer?
Yes, and this was back in the early 90s that he told me this story.
Well, that was the Bill Cooper "Behold a Pale Horse" when they talk about. Well, so here's a weird thing. Talking about back to the Danny Casolaro, Ted Gunderson sort of thing. So, and Ponzi schemes. There was a guy.
I love Ponzi schemes.
And the book was called The Octopus, but it wasn't a Danny Casolaro like directly. About a guy named Sam Israel who ran. It was called Bayou Hedge. It was a hedge fund, Bayou Hedge Fund. And so at some point he was involved with a guy named Robert Booth Nichols.
Oh, I know him.
Who had a extra role in a movie called Under Siege.
Classic film.
With America's greatest actor,
there you
Steven
go.
Seagal.
And Russia's greatest actor as well.
Yes, of course. And so what happened was, at some point, Israel meets Robert Booth Nichols, and he'd already heard about this video because it had popped up in Sherry Seymour's The Last Circle, which up until the mid 2000s had circulated as an online like manuscript, and then later on became a book, in a book I actually like a lot. And I think Sherry Seymour is actually a very intelligent person, even though she gets a lot of shit online. But what happened was Israel, when he meets Robert Booth Nichols, is like, is the video genuine? And he's like, I'll show you. And he shows him this Zapruder film where Greer turns around and shoots Kennedy. And I think that video was 1,000% not real, but it was meant to kind of relay a narrative. Like, you see that video, well, everybody knows it's bullshit because everybody would have been saying it. Meanwhile, who's to say? Because in the end, you hear a shot and everybody's looking different ways. That's how you get people saying the depository, the grassy knoll, possibly.
Everybody did it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Woody Harrelson's dad did it. I mean, there's so many ways, so many different directions.
I'm going to be honest with you, sir. I think Kane might have been involved. He's got eyebrows. He drives an Elantra.
It becomes Rashomon. It becomes like that sort of so many different, angles. It becomes a Snake Eyes, the Brian De Palma movie with Nicolas Cage. Everybody's guilty, nobody's innocent sort of situation. But so Israel sees it, and then later on, at this point, he's already made a business connection with Nichols. But then when his business goes the way of Sam Bankman-Fried's, Israel fakes his own death, writes "Suicide is Painless" in dirt on his windshield, and then jumps off a bridge in upstate New York, even though later he's found.
From what you're describing to me, it seems legit.
I still think they faked Nichols' death because Nichols died.
Oh, dude, 100%, dude. He's not. Yeah, that dude. He's a fucking spook of spooks.
2009, And then I believe in a safe deposit box, found a treasury note for $250 million.
Yep.
Something crazy.
Yeah,
I remember
dude,
breaking.
wasn't that some of them old Filipina World War II bank, transactions
Oh yeah,
and whatnot?
he was so involved. So when Danny Casolaro was, they try to paint him as being naive and so many other things.
Right.
I
Well, there
think
you
he
go.
was.
Errol Morris was involved in that documentary, making Castro look like a real dick.
Yeah, and in the end, I think Casolaro bounced ideas off sources. He talked to Riconosciuto, he talked to Nichols, but he also talked to
Chuck
the FBI.
Hayes, U.S. Air Force retired colonel, CIA secret agent. Chalmers, Chuck Hayes. Yes, sir.
Yep.
And let's not soon forget the economics professor from University of Penn, Wharton School of Business, J. Orland Gravy. Or Grabby, whatever you pronounce that name.
Yep. And I mean, you can even connect Jim Norman, a guy who worked for, I think it was like Fortune magazine. And to be honest, they tried to connect Bill Colby into that because he worked for Strategic Investment at the time of his infamous drowning. Because they said that there was
Bill Colby and his queers. I'm not shocked.
They said there was connections between Promise, Vince Foster, and like it was it was like the interlock that what's his name, Mark Lombardi, the artist, had sketched. Like it was these interlocking connections that could connect Nugan Hand all the way to BCCI, and
for sure. No, I'm into those connections, and I've run some of that information down, and it's solid. So, are you familiar with this fellow? He was another Casolaro source. He got murked in a very strange circumstance. His name was Chuck Morgan.
I've heard the name. I've definitely heard the name.
Well, I highly recommend you check out the Unsolved Mysteries. Despite Robert Stack's voice, likely it will haunt my nightmares for months after watching one episode. But he's a Treasury Department dude involved in financial matters with some gold stuff, some mob stuff, investigating stuff. He gets poisoned by some weird substance put in his mouth. He comes home with like coded messages on a dollar bill, and another coded message of the other half of that dollar bill with the other coded messages is found on his dead body in his underwear in the desert like 2 weeks later. It's
that's Arizona.
Yeah, and then for sure, Phoenix. I think it was Phoenix.
1977. What year was that?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, March 22nd, 1977. Disregard Tucson.
I'll throw another name. Don Bowles.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. So he's the journalist investigating that. Then they blow that dude up.
And his death, so here's a crazy connection. Years ago,
you know what I'm talking about. You got a lot of details, sir. I appreciate it.
Well, I was reading about Bowles, and my uncle was a public defender out in Scottsdale, and he knew every name. And he's like, "You don't know the entire story." He's like, "Whatever you're reading is like, it's not all of it." And he was talking about guys like Kemper Marley and all these guys who figured into the Bowles narrative, who were indicted in it. And he's like,
absolutely.
Because meanwhile, who was living out in Arizona at that time? Joe Bonanno, retired. You had some of the Detroit guys
in
retired.
Sun City, just south of Phoenix, right in between Phoenix and Tucson. And then you get Sammy the Songbird Gravano. I call him Sammy the Songbird because he raps out everybody, sings on everything.
You mean Jimmy Moran?
Right, exactly.
Alias.
No, I lived in Scottsdale there in Scottsdale Tempe border, but I lived in Tempe, but I was right on the border. I trained. I was side gig on active duty, but I was a personal trainer at the LA Fitness there in Scottsdale. There was, Kane, you'll like this part. There was more silicone in that gym than there was iron. But, I heard a lot of tales from some of my clients there about old Sammy the Songbird.
Really? What's that dude? What?
Well,
my girls are all natural. What are you talking about?
Allegedly.
Sammy the Bull.
Florida, that's just simply not true.
I'll tell you, Phil, you're nerding the fuck out, but I love it. It's great. It reminds me of a story my brother's father-in-law told me. And he grew up in a suburb of Chicago, late 40s, early 50s. And his father also. And his father has all these amazing stories that you'll never hear about the Chicago mob. And, bodies just turning up on the hood of a car in the morning. And no explanation. Yeah. There's no investigation into that at that time.
No,
Right.
hell no. I mean, when they talk about Chicago, there was a story about, and it was in the 70s, a murder of, I think it was a local union guy named Billy Logan, and it connected to a guy named Harry Alleman. Harry Alleman was not Italian. I think he was like Spanish, maybe Puerto Rican, but he was a prolific hitman for the outfit. And
All right.
they had a
Murder Inc.
witness. Well, sort of, because the outfit was all comers, Irish. That's how you have a guy named like Murray the Camel Humphreys, who was a Welshman, or
Oh, I like his name. I've never heard of him, but I like his name.
Political influencer. He
They
died
have
of a heart attack.
camels in Ireland.
Or Jake Greasy Thumbs Guzik, or a guy named Ken Ito, who was Japanese, who would turn on them. But
Any relation to
Kane B,
Lance?
Red Daddy, the Purge.
Any relation to Lance Ito?
No, it's ETO. But then again,
Oh,
you never know. They
Judge
could change it.
Ito.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal.
Well-
They call it Nippon. We call it Japan. I'm just saying they play some games with that.
Well, they tried to whack Ito. They missed. And then the outfit whacked the two guys who missed. But so the Chicago outfit's notoriety was no one really ever turned. And anyone who ever turned would be the subject of, say, like a car bomb, like somebody like Willie Byoff, who ratted out their extortion of the International Theater and Stage Employees Union in Hollywood.
Well,
like
how
there
about
would
Lefty
be-
Rosenthal back to the
Weird.
casino situation with Pesci in Vegas, right? He got firebombed a couple times, didn't he?
He got firebombed, survived, and it only came out that he was an FBI informant well after he died, him and his wife.
If you've
Right.
survived that, you deserve to get away with it. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, hey, and he gets a movie made.
Right?
Movie made that kind of like, showcases how great he was in the end, the fact that he...
The beginning of Casino,
Wasn't.
you're talking about?
Yeah, they
With
make
the
it
car
seem
bomb.
beginning and end.
Yeah.
Well, he got saved due to the fact that they put a plate under the car. I mean, because the car that he drove, my uncle drove that car, and I guarantee my uncle did not have the plate. It was something that Lefty had, and because in the end, they never indicated who bombed his car, whether it was the outfit or whether it was his old buddy Tony Spilotro. All we know is Lefty survives a car bombing that managed to hit Vegas almost like it was like an atomic bomb testing. That's how much it
right.
resonated out. His wife dies a month later of a drug overdose. Spilotro gets killed with his brother and buried out in a cornfield in 1986. And I mean, the Chicago outfit still, I mean, those secrets, how did those secrets get involved? I mean, get exposed?
Do you
In a
know
case called-
that the scene where they're eating dinner at Joe Pesci's mom's house in Goodfellas, that was the director's father. I'm sorry, the name slips my mind real quick.
Scorsese's
That was the
mom.
director's mother, and it wasn't scripted at all. They just let her talk and be herself.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest stories about that movie. Mob related stuff.
She was in Casino. She's the one who's the guy, Artie Piscano, the guy who's always complaining, every time he curses, because he's bitching about the fact that he's going back and forth, checking on the skim. And there was a guy he was Kansas City. He was a guy named Carl DeLuna, who was the underboss of the Kansas City mob, who was keeping records, and they found his records. Now in Casino, they find it, he drops dead of a heart attack. In real life, that didn't happen, but it made for great effect. But, in the movie, Martin Scorsese, I mean, his dad is the one who helps pull the trigger on Joe Pesci. When Joe Pesci realizes he's not getting made, he just walked into his own death.
Yeah.
So, but Martin Scorsese can make it.
Scorsese,
And to be honest, I hope Scorsese directs kind of like Elmore Leonard kept writing until his last breath. That's what I want. I want someone who just never stops creating, because Martin Scorsese was from that area. He's not a poser. He's someone who kind of like Mario Puzo. Mario Puzo, when he wrote The Godfather, was broke and owed loan sharks, and his agent's like, write what you know. And that's how he wrote The Godfather, which he didn't even consider his greatest work. Martin Scorsese was from the streets. He knew this stuff. He knew the knockaround guys. I loved Goodfellas. I think Casino is an epic, and yet it's considered less than Goodfellas. Meanwhile, like Henry Hill was an associate. He wasn't a made man. He was half Italian, half Irish.
And a
De
rat.
Niro and Pesci did another movie that I saw a clip from on YouTube the other day, and I don't know the name of it, but what was it called?
Was it The Irishman, the one that was on Netflix?
It might have been. They were much older. They're almost the age they are now.
It's terrible.
The Irishman, if you view it as fiction, pretty good.
Pretty good.
If you want to go with nonfiction, it's horseshit. Frank Sheeran, who De Niro plays, wrote a book called I Heard You Paint Houses, and that was supposed to be code for you're a hitter. Now, Frank Sheeran was in the Teamsters. However, so I read a book by a guy who was like later on the boss of the northeastern wing of the Pennsylvania mob. Russell Buffalino was the powerful boss, but it was his successor who wrote this book. It was one of the books I got for review. A guy named Billy D'Elia, because there are aspects of where I live, Long Island, pop into it, as well as Goodfellas. And to be honest, Long Island is very mob-centric. I mean, Godfather takes place in Long Beach, where I was born and raised, even though none of that movie is filmed there, because Long Beach said no. But which I've mentioned to JJ before, and I know I've mentioned to Nick from Occult Rejects, but with The Irishman, despite the fact that you have the whole CGI de-aging BS, you have the fact that Frank Sheeran rewrote his own life story 6 times to help leave a legacy towards his loved ones, the ones he screwed over. So in the end, he put himself as one of the trigger man on the Jimmy Hoffa hit. I think some of the guys got it right in the 70s, like Dan Mulday and Stephen Brill, who wrote a book called The Teamsters. It was the early guys who were kind of on the Jimmy Hoffa hit. So Jimmy Hoffa's death just hit 50 years. I don't think it was the Westies, involved, and I don't think it was a contract killer. I don't think it was friggin' the Iceman, who put himself in there, even though I will give him credit for other things.
How about Edward Wayne Edwards, the serial killer you probably never heard of?
I got his book. I got his daughter's book on Kindle because of you.
But we'll have to discuss. We'll have to discuss that. I'm gonna have to read that one too. April's book is a very intriguing story because she's got an intriguing tale. But Ed murdered in Michigan. Ed knew Jimmy Hoffa. In fact, Hoffa called him a queer on his way out of Leavenworth. Ed's way out.
You know what? That one surprised me. So, and what
that's
you think
enough
about
insight, Ed. I assure you to do some. Ed murdered for fun, so you call him a homo. I mean, that's gonna be enough for that.
Well, when
it was Hoffa that got him a job, though, too. If I may real quick, Hoffa's the one who got him a job that got him parole. He wasn't going to get parole allegedly unless he got a job, and no one was giving him a job until Hoffa. And then he didn't thank Hoffa, and Hoffa's like, "Well, you're a bitch," kind of thing, right?
Well, think of with Hoffa. So they talk about that meeting, that fateful meeting he went to. It was to talk to Tony Giacalone, who was a Detroit mobster, and Tony Provenzano. Tony Provenzano was a Genovese-connected mobster. Tony Pro helped Jimmy Hoffa ascend to the heights of the Teamsters. However, him and Hoffa had a disagreement at, Lewisburg, where they were both imprisoned. And I think Hoffa smacked.
Oh, you're right. My bad. It wasn't Leavenworth. It was Lewisburg in Pennsylvania. You are correct, sir.
And what happened was later on, so after Provenzano doesn't get convicted of Hoffa's murder, because no one got convicted of Hoffa's murder, Provenzano went down for another union official's murder. From everything I've read, Tony Pro went native in jail and went that way. But
well, you know Hoffa, what? The mob wouldn't have that, would they? He's probably doing it on the outside.
No.
I think a lot of them do it on the outside. Look at
Well, so here's a Roy DeMeo Sopranos. And
always young boys with him, right? A lot of kid porn going on, a little diddle porn going on there with old Roy.
And a New Jersey connection. So the Sopranos plot twist with Vito, where Vito Spatafore is outed as being gay. So Joe Ganascoli, the guy who played Vito, said he took inspiration. There was a guy named Vito Arena who was part of the DeMeo crew, who was gay and turned on the DeMeos. And I think later on was killed in like a holdup, but after he had turned. turn states, whatever you want to call it.
I was about to say,
But
what's the
there
turn
was-
in here?
Yeah, right. But
Tricks?
I mean, you know what? When you talk about the fact of the porn aspect, and even
Well, yeah, look at the S&M crowd from Son of Sam business, all that stuff that James Franco made that weird shit about with the Deuce that he licensed Maury Terry's work to make, The Ultimate Evil, that is, and bastardized it. That's all about the gay S&M scene, and that was owned by the mafia, right?
Make the Kuklinski connection, because remember, James Franco is in The Iceman, along with David Schwimmer.
This guy's got
plays,
jokes. This guy's got jokes.
David Schwimmer plays the Roy DeMeo's surrogate son, Chris Rosenberg, in that story. But Franco plays a victim of Kuklinski, where it says, if God shows up, I'll spare you, sort of thing. You know, and that supposedly Kuklinski was involved with bootleg porn. But every story, including Murder Machine, which is like the quote unquote definitive story of the DeMeo crew, which is written by a guy named Jerry Capisi, very prolific.
Right. I've read
and
that
I
book.
like Capisi.
I mean, it's an
I like
read,
Capisi,
right?
but Capisi might be like a Howard Blum.
Yeah, I kind of got that take on the matter as well. I've looked into it more, right?
Yeah. So, but with so hold on. So back to Kuklinski with well, so you were just talking about, I just heard one of the shows you just did where you mentioned the Deuce and Matty the horse in yellow, who was big into porn.
Matty the horse Einelli, a real sick fuck. Real sick.
Oh yeah,
fuck.
but you know what else he owned? Umberto's, where Joe Gallo got killed.
Get out of town.
Which also figured into The Irishman, because that was another hit that you had certain things.
It fits into the whole story of The Godfather, because they do that in the Paramount series, don't they? Because at the very same time that Cocaine Bob is making The Godfather with the Colombo crime family, the opposing crime family of the Gambinos over there with Crazy Joe Gallo, who just got out of prison, he gets a film made about him based upon that first Costello mob war, right? Which he went to prison for murking some mob bosses, gets out, and they make a film about him from MGM, and Cocaine Bob has to trade Robert De Niro for Al Pacino to be in The Godfather.
That was, Jimmy Breslin's The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight.
There we go. And then we get Jimmy Breslin. Yes, sir. We get Jimmy Breslin with the Son of Sam. Jimmy Breslin with the Jimmy Breslin was in the kitchen at the Ambassador Hotel when RFK was murked. The fuck's Jimmy Breslin doing all these places?
Here's another interesting.
He traveled with him the whole campaign.
You know who was Jimmy Breslin's Son of Sam counterpart? Who also covered the mob? Steve Dunleavy, who worked for Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, Maury Terry's associate.
Yes, well, because I always liked Steve Dunleavy lived close to me, because there was a story about one point where Steve Dunleavy, I think he worked for the Post, and he also worked Current Affairs. So there's a Maury Povich. You are not the father.
There you go. Wasn't it Dunleavy in the byline of some of those Terry articles with the Post?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Dunleavy and Terry were friends. So. But I remember back.
Well, he was at the end, right? That was kind of the end to that post, right? Was getting the because he's like, Terry's obviously doing the work, but Dunleavy's putting the byline on there, right? He's like, Dunleavy and Terry.
Well, Dunleavy.
That was my take.
Maury Terry is a fascinating guy. Steve Dunleavy, though, was your camera-friendly sort of guy. You know, he was the guy who could.
He's the internet. He's your in. He's the inside. He's the inside's inside, right?
He's your
insider's insider.
Yes. So I remember when Dunleavy was working for the Post, and he wrote a story about his son asking about someone's house in Lido Beach, which is the town over from me. And he's like, that's Tommy Gambino's house. Carlo Gambino's son. And Carlo Gambino's son, Tommy, married the daughter Tommy Lucchese. So sort of like that intermarriage that was very prominent in the mafia, especially to bridge.
Oh, for sure. We see that in The Godfather, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, when it comes to The Godfather and it comes to Carlo and Connie, Carlo, as far as we know, you're there. You're still there. Carlo, I think, is supposedly the outsider, but they talk about these marriages that cement alliances. Joe Bonanno's son, Bill, married Rosalie Profaci, who was the niece of Joe Profaci. And later on, Joe Bonanno was like, that brought the Pax Bonanno. Like there was...
Right. Well, I mean, look how Gallo, he knocks off Costello and Gambino takes over, right?
Well, hold on. So just, and again, respect the hell out of you. So hold on.
Am I getting too far ahead there?
No, you know who shot Costello? Wasn't killed. You know who took a shot at Frank Costello? Vinny the Chin.
That's right. But
right. He says, "This is for you, Frank." Costello turns and he nicks his ear. Now, they just did the De Niro movie. So a successor to The Irishman was The Alto Knights, which was De Niro playing two roles, Vito Genovese, Frank Costello. So Vinny the Chin misses. It hits Costello. Costello, now you want to talk about blood. Costello bleeds like it's a fatal wound. It's just a nick. But those nicks...
Just a flesh wound. He got himself a Trump shot?
Trump shot. And the other interesting aspect was the New York cops search Costello and they find the daily take of the Tropicana in Vegas, which gave an early indication of the skim, even though it never went that much further. It was very rudimentary in terms of investigation. And Costello retires. Joey Gallo, the hit he has always been associated with was Albert Anastasia in Murder Inc. Because Albert Anastasia was the head of Murder. I love that.
There you go, sir. There you go.
Yes.
Yep. He was in tight with Lansky, right? He was in real tight with Lansky.
Who? Anastasia?
Bill Blansky.
Yeah, Bill Blansky.
Bill Blansky. That's my favorite.
About 7 feet tall.
Well, if I may thank you, all three of you, for joining me here for this discussion. I may bring this in for a landing here. We'll have some closing statements and discussions here. But so now I saw some statements about talking about the Gonzalez family here. But I also want to thank folks of the interwebs for joining us here tonight and commentary in the discussion. I have heard a lot of statements about a man I like to hear about. And a game I like to play here, so if I may interject before we get into the Gonzalez discussion.
You tell me, who is your daddy and what does he do?
Now, who is that man's daddy and what does he do?
Great movie. It's not a too much.
I appreciated your comment, Phil, when I posted that on Twixter about a week ago, because your response was precisely mine. Wouldn't it be fucking wild if the man who brought serial killers to America, the Phoenix program, come home, Mr. Bill Colby, and RR channel, the Bill Colby ball washer's already in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and let you know, RR, I don't give a shit what you're going to say about it tonight. I really don't care. You murk 32,000 women and children. I don't care if you say it's to fight communism. We can find a different solution, I suppose. And you certainly don't bring it home and weaponize religion and folklore, Phoenix program style, through the Satanic Murder Inc. Like Albert Anastasia's Murder Inc., Satanic Murder Inc., because Anton LaVey's uncle was a mobbed up dude who helped start the Flamingo Hotel. And Anton LaVey personally knew Meyer Lansky, and Anton LaVey's hero was an occultist of a far more nefarious nature than Crowley, apparently, and an international gun trafficker, who's the family that financed that dude was, in fact, the early members of the Church of Satan. So it's the same. We're talking about some dark shit, but it is Bill Colby that would bring these matters to America, and it would be wild if that one of the most prolific serial killers, Mr. Ted Bundy, who everyone claims Brian Koberger, was obsessed with Ted Bundy. It's one of the propaganda narratives, and wouldn't that be wild if that was the most prolific killer, was the biological son of Ted, of old Bill and Ted's murderous adventure? But no, I enjoyed your statement on that, because that was my response as well, sir.
Absolutely.
We don't know Ted's father.
It's crazy.
We don't know his father.
Like Manson's
we
dad.
do know his. What's that?
We don't know Manson's dad either.
Well,
I mean, we think it might be a military.
Colonel
right?
Henderson. Colonel Scott Henderson, yeah. So again, we have more military connections there. Wouldn't that be weird? And again, he's a Maynard.
Yeah.
When I say he's a Maynard, I make that point is this: the Maynard boys were the first ones across the west of the Appalachian, our current incarnation of America. And in fact, when I say that, they're a British line, where their cousins, mine and Chuck's, that is, well, Chuck's dead, I suppose, but about my 8th cousin, his 7th, is a member of Parliament still in that Maynard line. So this is what I'm talking about with he's a Maynard from Pikeville. He's also a McCoy from Pikeville, like the Hatfields and McCoys, and I'm both Hatfield and McCoy, but that's a horse of a different color. So I'm just saying we don't know Ted Bundy's father. We do know Bill Colby was in and around Burlington, Vermont at the same time that Ted Bundy's mother's getting knocked up. So, dude, Colby didn't personally do it. It's well documented in congressional reports here in America that the Phoenix program murked 24,000 women and children. I believe South Vietnam claims it was 40,000. I split the difference. We'll call it 32. It's a sick program. And it's a sick program brought home in these fashions. But speaking of sick programs brought home in weird fashions, what are we discussing here regarding Mr. Gonzalez? Whoop, that's not it. Let's work that battery out. Whoop, nope. That still isn't it. What's going on right now? Kane, are you cloning me, Kane?
I tinkered in the back room. I let Twiz back there.
What is going on here? There we go. Holy smokes.
I'm back. Sorry.
Yes, sir. So what was your take on the Gonzalez family? Do you know Nathan Gonzalez? Well, that's the Muppetized version. Let me get you the real version. Boom.
I think it's a family with something to hide.
And look, he has Muppet hands.
Oh, wouldn't that be weird if the real Nathan Gonzalez had Muppet hands and the Muppet Nathan Gonzalez had real hands? Lucy Morningstar's had a real problem with these hands tonight. That would flip her out if that was the case.
I think they doth protest too much. They were very out there and early. And again, I get it when you're trying to, come out for your family, but I feel like they've been more out there than anybody, to a point when you do start to question what their motives are. And it's not just the father, it was also the sister, and it was kind of like a double-edged aspect to it. And again, you never want to impugn the victims. However, why can't you ask questions when certain things don't make sense? Why all of a sudden do you need to be censored? Like when you ask questions about whether it be the Idaho 4 or a Seth Rich, why can't you ask questions? I think you should always be allowed to ask questions. I'm not casting any sort of suspect nature on the victims. I'm asking.
Sure, and I'm not trying to cast any aspersions either, sir. So I don't think you're coming off that way either, nor is that what we're aiming for here. I agree. But, they have inserted a series of false narratives. They've impugned Brian Koberger's character over and over again and claimed there was other evidence that they'd seen that the public had not seen that convicted Brian Koberger. We now know that was bullshit. And yes, I know Jen has a lot of thoughts on this. Please, ma'am, go ahead.
I feel like once you put yourself out there for public consumption, like you have to accept what goes along with it, and that's going to be scrutiny.
For sure.
And honestly, I don't mean to sound cold, but like 4 people were brutally murked. Like I don't have time for feelings. Like I don't. There's a way you can still ask questions and be respectful. You get what I'm saying? Like there's nothing wrong with asking questions. People act like messed up crap doesn't happen every day in this world. Like nobody's off limits, especially if you're out there and you're not just misspeaking, but making blatantly false statements and not even coming out like next time and saying, oh, I was mistaken. I said this, but it really was not true. This is the real truth. They don't ever correct themselves. They just double down and then triple down.
Oh, dude, and you got to look how connected they are to the media campaigns around these matters. I'm not trying to cast aspersions, but I'm just calling them out to seize them.
Right. It is what it is.
Well, if anybody you can cast aspersions on, it's the media, because you got to go. If it bleeds, it leads. They don't give a shit about the victims. I'm sorry. Like, and again, I know people in the media, like they want something that pushes the narrative, like that has been something that's been kind of solidified by people who've worked in media. I've read Candace Owens' book. I've read Cheryl Atkinson's book, where both people who've worked in the media and say it's the narrative. That's what pushes things. So when you let's even go back to, so whether we're talking about 2022 in Idaho, or we're talking about 1977 in the Bronx, it's a narrative. That's what they want. So in 1977, you have the fact that a sort of depleted police force manages to catch a heinous serial killer. Well, you're not going to ask any questions about why are there
hero
different
cops
descriptions.
Those guys were doing. They were doing the, they're out there doing the ground, they're boots on the ground.
They're doing God's work.
interviews.
God's work, JJ.
You're not going to get interviews and tips and inside information from either the police, your contacts at the police, or you're going to get Steve G on your show to do an interview if you talk against what they're saying. So you have to play nice. It's bullshit.
Well, that's one aspect of it, sure. But thankfully, to those hero cops doing the Lord's work there in New York City for the son of Sam, it was a parking ticket that solved that crime, apparently, right?
Right.
And
that's what they really worked hard.
All that work for nothing.
There was none of there's none of that. I mean, can you imagine? People can't get away with anything nowadays, so it's surprising.
Well, no, it's a very similar circumstance where they backtracked all the information later to put it all on their patsy kind of situation.
Yeah, they
how dare you, sir?
Reverse engineered it.
It helped lead to a pay raise. I know that, and promotions.
Oh, everyone got paid, right? Everyone got paid.
I think I might have told you.
Retired.
I might have told you, JJ, that I ran into one of the Son of Sam cops.
Yeah, it was the real beefy Irish fella, right? What's his name?
Yes,
Jimmy
Joe, the late Joe Coffey,
who
also investigated organized crime. I mean, don't get me wrong, legendary cop, but in terms of Son of Sam, he was wrong, and because he used to have he's in the Sons of Sam Netflix thing, arguing with Maury Terry.
Stalking him on the radio, right? Calling up the radio show saying you're a charlatan. Like, what's that about, right? What's that about? Now, when you say, Phil, when it bleeds, it leads, where's the blood here? Show me the blood. Show me where's the leading? Where's the bleeding?
You know what the first thing I noticed about this picture?
This is like a Where's Waldo situation, and he's got to find the blood, though.
Is that the wine bottles on that car are not there. There was like 2 or 3 or 4 wine bottles in the bottom.
They're interior decorators. Also,
that closet door opens from the other side, and it can't be all the way opened inwards, and we're just not seeing it because there's the stairs are in the way. It's not going to push in all the way, but on other photos, it opens from the other side.
Oh, I found Waldo. I don't know what door this is because none of them have a keypad, but there is evidence of someone dripping 2 small drops of blood on a door.
I saw more in the OJ case.
Very tiny. It's far more than the OJ case, right? Like, we at least got these, right? It is literally the OJ, because that's what they did with OJ's blood and the victim's blood. They sprinkled some of the victim's blood at OJ's spot. They sprinkled some of OJ's blood at the crime scene. The portion they didn't spray down within 12 hours. The back gate portion, right?
Kool-Aid, not blood. Remember, it's stage blood in water bottles on, in a cooler outside. That's what they use. That's why they don't want to test it. That's why they don't want to test the unknown male, because it's really not blood.
Well, was Philip Van Adder's
this is Idaho, man? They don't have to test things there. They have they have all-seeing, all-knowing powers to know what went on here without any tests, obviously.
Right.
Based on their knowledge and experience.
Yeah, exactly. Based on
test
and experience.
Test be damned. Test be damned, Kane.
Was Philip Van Adder's great grandnephew's cousin's former roommate possibly walking around with a vial of blood, perhaps?
You don't know how much closer to the truth you are. Not in this case, but Van Adder's connected to a fella here in Cincinnati. So he left LAPD after the OJ thing. Same with Nazi Mark Furman and Tom Lang. They all said, poof, we're going the way of Houdini. And Van Adder would go to Rising Sun, Indiana. So 2 small towns across the river over from Cincinnati. Technically Harrison, the western suburbs of Cincinnati. One of his cops there, under his tutelage for the remaining years of his career, would become the sex crimes investigator for Cincinnati PD, and was caught vacuuming, just making them go disappear, poof, the way of Houdini. A few dozen Baker's dozen sex crimes against children just a few years ago. He's one of Van Adder's proteges. So there is a lineage to these kind of matters of folks planting shit and whatnot. We see Gooch is well versed within the Furman situations and whatever, the whole Manson factor. But she made up a lot of shit in this case, according to that PCA. She was the character involved in the bushy eyebrows and the balaclavas, and in fact, that later proved to be bullshit with Dylan Mortensen. Lucy Morningstar loves this, so I'll play that again. But and then she was allegedly the one involved in the IGG investigation. Of course, these details were hid for 2 years. But you make I like the jokes there, but you do make a point there as well that there is an element to the heritage of planting crime scenes in these matters, and Van Adder seemed to carry that shit back east with him. Here's a strange fun fact for you. I'm not directly related to Philip Van Adder, but his ancestor Van Adder would be an early settler in what is now Logan County, West Virginia, where my ancestor Abner Vance was the pioneering fellow that settled what is known as the Tug Valley, which is Pikeville, Kentucky, Logan, West Virginia, that region. So the Van Adders are deeply entwined within my Vance clan tree. I knew that until doing Philip Van Adder, the scumbag guy fellow there. Until doing his family tree, I didn't realize he was the same Van Adder. So, and the ideas of who was your daddy?
Sorry, go
what's
ahead.
that?
No, I was going to say, people seem like they have to physically have someone's blood. They're like, oh, if they're going to frame him, why would they, put more of his DNA at the scene?
Well,
no, you don't even, first of all, you don't even need to have someone's actual bodily fluids or tissue to create a DNA profile. Like,
ma'am, where's the struggle? Where's the crime scene?
Right. They were moving stuff around in that kitchen, and that is a proven fact. We have photos of things that are on one counter, and then the next photo they're in on the table. You're not supposed to move stuff around. It was staged. I mean, period.
Well, they got a mandatory monthly training requirement for interior decorating training, so they got to do that.
Yeah. Listen, there was something at the scene physically, in my opinion, that
where's the struggle? What's going on here? This is Kaylee's room, right? Is this
allegedly? I mean, she left all that stuff behind, but she moved.
Yeah, she didn't live there no more.
Bullshit.
You're telling me that this is a crime scene where two people were at least stabbed 30 and 50 times? This looks like this is cleaner than my room right now. I'll be honest with you.
Did you notice?
You're suspect, Kane. You got eyebrows. You driving the lawn truck.
A white sedan. Did you notice in DM's room, the photo of her room, there's something on the wall that they blurred out? Like, what's on the wall?
Right. And there's a bed shot that's blurred out.
Room? Like, I call bullshit on all this. There was bags, like a bag that like bedding comes in, like a bed in a bag. I'm pretty sure that was somewhere on the evidence list. I saw something with like a bag, like bedding.
Jen,
I like how the media is selling, if I may, sir. The media is like, oh, we got 200 images, most of which are so gruesome we cannot show you. However, please look at this back patio, which has nothing to do with the crime scene because it snowed after the crime.
What a lovely view.
There's no snow anywhere else in the neighborhood, by the way.
Look at this tape job we did over here with this.
I'm traumatized for life.
I mean, just what we're seeing from the pictures, this is like surgical precision. So what in the fuck are the cops like devastated about? Like that's not
right.
Exactly. Surgeries aren't even this neat.
And who's running up and down these stairs? What dogs, people, elephants? I don't know what else going on in this house, but who's running up and down these stairs? And you got things blocking it, and it's blocking the hallway to the other way. And how is Howard, folks? There's no blood in this room no more. No one saw nobody dead in this room. Again, we start looking at all these details, the known knowns of the matters. And hold on.
As we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know.
And there's a lot of things we know here, and looking at these pictures, those don't comport.
I mean, he may have been evil, but Rummy knew his shit. I mean, if anybody could explain the unknown knowns.
He's a psychopath.
I'm a Newt fan. I like Newt.
Nudie?
It's just ridiculous. I mean,
I was talking about Jen before the show. I was talking with JJ about the crime scene pictures here and how I've cut myself shaving and made a bigger mess than it looked like on the mattress. It looks like somebody just swiped it. It's not like that. You have a house where blood was literally coming out of the walls of the fucking house.
Allegedly, sir.
And now you show me this crime scene. The floors are cleaner than my house right now. What the fuck are you talking about?
They're describing something that looks like you just got off the second floor at the Overlook Hotel, and what you're seeing is not even like...
You're waiting for the elevator to open up.
Yeah. You're waiting for the twins to say, come play with us, and you're getting nothing. Like, I mean, the scene that is relayed in the opening pages of the Idaho 4 is these cops... You know, like, it's like, oh my God, like, I can't even deal with this. And it's like, those pictures don't relay that. They are not computing. The math is not. Let's put it that way.
No, it's not. It's not. This is the entryway from the first floor of the entryway of the home. And, you know, on one other comment I want to make, you know, all work and no play makes Kane a dull boy. But, you know, there is no sign of a crime scene in this situation. No, there's no sign of a struggle. There's items that are placed in all these very small bedrooms. Don't clone me, Kane. In these very small bedrooms that look undisturbed. And the things that look undisturbed, I look very disturbed looking at these fucking pictures. And you want to tell me this is a crime scene? Look, I've seen some crime scenes, and this ain't a crime scene. And now I'm not just describing the blood. And this is not a crime scene.
No.
Is it just me, or do the mattresses in the photos look a hell of a lot smaller than the ones that they put in the back of those pickup trucks? Or am I just not? Right.
Well, remember them stains that folks, we had a dispute over there with MKane Ultra and he wanted to say it was blood. I'm like, that's bullshit. It wasn't blood. But we had about an hour-long discussion on the matter. And you know, again, they're moving the furniture out of a murder scene before a suspect's been identified about an hour after they told the whole world, like, hey, we don't know shit. We're going to need your help finding the 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra driven by Kane. But then they later say, oh, no, we didn't mean that it was 2015. But
literally, an hour after the day of the arrest, they changed it. Like,
the morning of,
a wild goose chase.
They sent out a fax because, you know, Chief Fridaze doesn't know how to do anything else besides some shit from the 80s. And, you know, sent out a fax, and then he got in the U-Haul and they drove it over there. Literally, the media is sending out the reports and doing the articles that morning, and Chief Fridaze giggling his ass off like, you know, he does in the bathtub, smells his own farts, driving that U-Haul over to a murder scene, emptying it out.
We have to do this for their healing. Hopefully, this helps them heal. Meanwhile, like, you're carrying out like a vacuum cleaner, some dirty shoes. Like, how is that going to help them heal? How is that?
Where's the scene here? What's going on in this one? I don't see any struggles. I don't see any sign of any struggles. I don't see any shreds of evidence of a scene of murders or otherwise. Maybe untidiness, right? Maybe they need to fold their clothes or pick them off the ground.
It's so mind-boggling.
It's just weird, right? I know no one allegedly dies in here, but what is, you know, we're told all the doors are open, right? That's one of the narratives we later get as well. So let's close this out here. Yeah, let's close out here on Hunter Johnson. So we're told Hunter Johnson now in the Patterson book, I believe it is, he's just like hanging out inside, like sitting on the couch, right?
Yeah, he was there. Like,
he's armed.
He's armed, allegedly.
Well, you got to get a knife because you know when you have no reason to believe there's any emergency, you got to get a knife.
Right.
They can't play it both ways. They want to play it both ways. There wasn't a problem, but there is a problem.
Then he gets on the 911 call and he's like, "Oh, I don't know. They just handed me the phone. I'm sorry. What? Like playing dumb. Like what? Where's the urgency, bro?"
He's got to have the knife. He's got to like be the vigilant one, considering the fact that Dylan
he lets his phone there all day. Like, come on, no.
But even if I may, even in his timeline between the Patterson and the Amazon, his timeline gets even murkier.
Phil, I'm gonna tell you.
Now he's leaving his phone at the scene. He's asleep.
Yeah.
He's not asleep.
Yeah.
But listen, number one thing.
He knows where Ethan is. He doesn't know where Ethan is.
On the 911 call, we're told that he goes in.
Very important.
He sees what he sees. Tells everyone, "Get out, get out, get out," and call 911. Right? Get out, and then call 911. But how do we hear him saying, "Get out, get out, get out" on the 911 call?
Right. And where's the couch
period.
sitting?
Mic drop. Like, period. It was a staged call. Like, I mean, come on. People that believe that it's real.
Here's my question.
Hear him saying "get out" if he said call 911 after he told them to get out. You get what I'm saying?
Here's my question at everything. Like, and again, this was as I was reading it, because there are certain books you have a narrative, and so I've been reviewing books for 10 years. And as we've gotten into the craziness of like the last 5 years and where nothing makes sense anymore,
Right.
you have dialogue with books where you start arguing with them. And in my case, as I hear the Dylan Mortensen story, not the Bethany Funke, which all I can think of is like Arrested Development with that name. But how do you just literally go to sleep or whatever you do after the fact, considering the fact you might have just met eyes with your possible killer, and then shut the door because that'll protect you, and then not go upstairs, but reach out and be like, I think something's wrong. Like her behavior. And again, I don't give a shit if you're a Dylan as a man or a woman. What in the fuck? Like,
she passed the front door to go to Bethany's room. Okay, so if she was that scared, she could have escaped. They knew, in my opinion, that they would not be harmed. Maybe they didn't know that what happened was going to happen. Maybe they thought it was going to be another situation, and they're like, "Oh shit, what really is going on?"
Right.
Maybe that's why they were confused. I'll give them that. But point blank, they stayed there because they knew that they would not be harmed. They, at the very least, best case scenario, in my opinion, they know who's involved, or they know something.
You get it.
Osama bin Laden.
I'm willing to say. Tim Osman. When it comes to certain people, I'm like, you get a mulligan to a certain point, and then afterwards you're involved. Like there's certain things where I'm like, I'm willing to give you a certain amount of latitude, and then it's like,
I'm willing to write off. They're just a bunch of dum-dums to a certain extent. And I'm like, you all are a bunch of dum-dums. Look at you.
I could have looked past the calling friends first if they were really asleep. To be fair, ma'am, let's scrutinize the law enforcement instead of those folks, because how the fuck is law enforcement biting off on this stupid story? Why are they running numerous narratives? Not even talking about the media narratives, the Brett Payne narratives, the Gooch, all this nonsense. The fact, even after Ann Taylor and the defense published the public motion proving the transcript showing these folks were awake, Shushley Jennings stood up. Shushley Jennings stood up and argued in dispute to that and said, well, the state's going to argue they went to bed at 4:32 and then they woke up at 11:56 and called 911. And that's after she just laid out a bunch of details and like, we signed up for the Hippler Friends and Family program. Y'all go fuck yourselves. It's gaslighting. It's like to the extreme. I mean, period. Why are you calling friends if you could have went upstairs to Kaylee and Maddie and asked them for help? Why are you calling outside friends? That told me they knew Kaylee and Maddie were not capable of assisting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one or the other. Like, you should have called for medical attention for your friend. Okay, fine. You didn't know something was wrong. You just calling about what happened at 4 a.m. Okay, fine. Let's say that story. Okay, well, what made you all of a sudden scared? Like, there's just every
they weren't scared. They were sleeping.
Question.
Their inaction ranks with the caretaker at CLO Drive.
What's
Stephen Parent?
Possibility.
Yep.
I don't know that.
I thought it was Garrettson. I thought Stephen.
Oh, you're right. Stephen Parent was the victim. Stephen Garrettson. You are correct. You remember
declined the chance to address the court and shed any light on why he did what he did. He confessed last month.
We see that they're shitcoating these matters. Even in this Fox News report, Mark, stop with your Fox News propaganda. Even this Fox News report with Mark Furman, the Nazi felon fella, whose son helped Chris McDonough find that one glove out there on Thanksgiving 2022. Oh, that's weird. We see here that they're still going back to, they're reverting back to more bullshit when we know this is not the right timeline of events with the transcript. It's not the state's position, because the state's position, according to Shushley Jennings, was, no, they went to bed at 4:32 and woke up 11:56. So they've, they're bending a little bit, but they're still going back to their bullshit.
They couldn't even get the 911 call timing right. They were saying it was 11:58. I think they still are saying that, but you clearly hear 11:56 on the recording of the 911 call. Like, you can't even get that right. Like, what is with the, like, what?
It is the most contrived 911 call in many respects. It's basically 4 a.m., but, we also see the Hunter Johnson stuff. So we see Hunter Johnson's hanging out on the couch with a knife. What's that about? If he's running in and out numerous times, making numerous 911 calls. So did you get the
He was there
impression
before.
perhaps
He was there
there
first.
you go.
I mean.
His phone's there. Phil, did you perhaps get the impression that these events transpired much earlier in the morning as far as the police response?
You know, I mean, they were really sticking to that after 4, sort of.
Well, not until the PCA. They were saying between 3 and 4 up until the PCA.
You know what? To be honest, when I read the Patterson book, I'm like, as I'm seeing 4 and 4:30, I'm like, there was part of me like in my head, because again, there's like almost a year difference between reading the 2 books, where I was kind of like, you notice the difference. And you know what? I think it's part of my being someone who's like been on the periphery of law enforcement with relatives where they're, start blinking red with it. There were certain things, and maybe that's where Blum's work is better.
It might be more factual for certain details, in my opinion, because there's things that he did say that ended up like, okay, like certain things lined up. And some of his work, his research, I guess, if you want to call it, was done before the gag order. Yeah. So maybe
if you want to call it that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, you know what? I honestly think here is how I will say it. And again, and I'm going to say this with you guys, and as a reviewer, I'm limited. I do as much as I can with what I have. And they only want certain things. They don't want full out blast negative, truth be told. The Patterson book wasn't bad in certain aspects. The Blum book was, like I said, very timeline, very it was clinical. Like it was just very like a timeline. Like there was certain things where it was like there was no humanity to it, where the Patterson book was full of it.
One was fluff with no substance. The other one was just fluff and all substance. Or, I mean, one was fluff with no substance. The other was just fluff.
JJ, you nailed it. Like 100%
Yeah.
Like
There you
completely. And yes, there's notable attributes towards both. However, both indict Kohberger without saying why he did it. All you're doing is attributing just nonsense, circumstantial motive, and just conjecture. Nothing relate. It's like just saying.
Well, I think in the foreword, I think Howard Blum said he stayed at the Holiday Inn Express last night, so he felt like Kohberger did it, and that was going to help. Felt like that was enough evidence for him.
He did say basically that the case was not as open and shut as they would like us to believe. He did.
Yeah, but then he contradicts himself and says, but obviously Kohberger did it. And that's what he'll say.
Yeah, he totally contradicts himself completely. I mean,
Kane, if you call me one more time, I'm out of here, buddy.
I'm in trouble.
Just talking about I had mentioned earlier Dan Mulday. Dan Mulday writes a book about the assassination of RFK, where he goes conspiracy up until the last chapter, where the person he believes killed RFK, Eugene Thien Caesar, he pulls back and is like, nope.
He's a nice guy, great guy.
Yep. And then you represent.
I got the same impression from that, and I read that RFK book after I read his book on the NFL. I'm like, well, holy shit, this dude got blacklisted for writing about all the gambling within the owners of the NFL. And you were talking about some mob characters earlier connected to Vegas. The Hilton fella, Paris Hilton's uncle, I believe, had to sell his rights to, I believe, the Chargers he was owning due to his Vegas mafia gambling connections. So, and it was Mulday's book I learned that stuff from. And then he got blacklisted a lot from that. I'd seen him on a Letterman show years ago. So I was like, oh, cool, I'll read his RFK book. And then he shameless twisted me at the end, like, oh, no, this Nazi dude who worked for Boeing and Howard Hughes, totally good guy, great guy.
He took a knee on a few books, and I respect his work on Hoffa. But yeah, when it comes to RFK, when it comes to certain aspects of Danny Casolaro and other things like that, I'm like, nope. Yeah, there's people.
Based on your recommendations, I'll check out his Hoffa work. But yeah, I agree with you on your other assessment there. He's pumping out some garbage.
They're not even gatekeepers, torchbearers. You're torchbearers.
You need a true believer, right? You need to truly believe. I think in many respects he thinks what he's saying is probably in his mind true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't picture what's a better way to perpetrate your propaganda? Doing it with a bunch of bullshitters. You can only find that many good con artists, or finding a bunch of true believers you can convince to perpetrate your message.
100%.
Yeah, there are people that are the deceivers, but there's a lot of being deceived.
You know,
right?
when they always talk about the big lie, right? It's not it's not just the lie, it's the people who you're willing to convince of its effectiveness. You're willing
there you go. And there's some of my you just hit the target here. Taking notes, our channel. I see you still commenting silly shit. And I appreciate your dedication, your time, your efforts, and it does keep me motivated in life. I do appreciate your time. Thanks for your service. That's my problem with Bill Colby. So you're perpetrating all these programs in this manner, and this is, you just nailed it on the head. One of my main gripes and complaints, and one of them. I got a lot, but one of them. So I do appreciate where your head's at there, sir. So let's we don't mind bringing this in for a closing here this evening. I do appreciate you all joining me here for this barn burner of a conversation. And folks of the interwebs, thanks for joining us here tonight as well. Get a little GCD here on these topics. Jen, may I offer you some closing statements and commentary? Any plugs?
You want to offer me?
Well, I'd like you to start us off, ma'am. I posted your link in the chat for Criminal Confidential. I highly recommend folks check that out. Jen does some interesting, causes you to your brain hole to short out when she starts presenting things like,
tell us more
these
about
videos
your
may be fake.
These
videos. I'm like, wait a second, I didn't even consider that. Holy shit, she may be onto something here.
My brain,
especially when you're dealing with the Christ Church, as Howard Blum calls them, the Kirkers. I don't think that's a derogatory statement, I believe, but I'm not
I think
sure.
they call themselves that. I think.
Oh, do they? Okay, well,
Wilson.
I just want to blame Howard Blum.
That's a Roddenberry thing for sure.
World poverty.
If I'm going to be fair, I just want to blame Howard Blum.
I think Doug Wilson made a statement in one of Blum's articles and basically said that if any of his congregants, Kirker, I don't know what you want to call them, were called for jury duty.
Apparently, I guess we'll all do it.
That he would encourage them to be, neutral. But basically, he said something to the effect of, "From what he sees now, it looks like they have the wrong man." If I remember correctly, it's what he said. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I really wonder about what would have happened if they would have got like a jury, half of them part of the church. That would have been interesting for sure.
Well, I appreciate your views on a lot of these topics. Like I said, your videos have caused me to reevaluate a lot of circumstances. That the formal event, the Betty's Ball, these videos, the grub truck stuff, you bring up some interesting points continually there on Criminal Confidential. I put your link in the chat, folks. Check that out. And I put a little note there, cocaine approved. That's the medicinal stamp there by Kane B's The Purge. So thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Do you have any other statements regarding tonight's conversation or plugs on your channel?
No, just people need to just pay attention to what they're not telling us, like what they don't have. It's not always about what they're saying they have. What do they not have? That's the biggest thing. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Cocaine, MKane Ultra, the man who called me way too many times tonight, and I'm going to dispute this with my congressional Muppet representative and file a complaint against you, sir.
I'll await the.
Do you have any? Thank you for joining me tonight, sir. Again, to get a little GCD. I always appreciate your purge invasions of Operation GCD. Do you have any closing statements? Possibly any recipes you can share with us? Type 2 diabetes information.
If you put ice cream in anything, it's delicious.
Well, come on. We don't have to. That should be common knowledge.
I don't know. What if you put ice cream?
It depends on the ice cream, I guess. If it's Bluebell, get some good Listeria going.
I don't know about that. Ice cream.
I would call it diet. I would call it.
I think we're the greatest prosecution.
I am going to dispute that point because I once had
raw oysters.
Don't do that. I once had an Oktoberfest beer float at Red Robin's Burger House. It sounded good, didn't taste good, and it also
Red
didn't
Robin
back up very well.
Is terrible.
Red Robin.
I got a burger there, and it came out raw. Like I took a bite out of it, and it was literally raw.
It's like you have one job. You have one job.
I mean, too.
So when with the next purge is what we doing? Purging some Mondays. You got any other closing
I'm
statements?
shooting for a Monday. Met her on a Tuesday kind of thing. We'll just have to see.
Well, we've
See you
always
next
got an
Tuesday.
ex-girlfriend tail on deck.
We need to do see you next Tuesdays.
There you go again,
Am I to
Jen.
believe you have no further statements? Is this the first time in life that this is true? What's going on here? Is this a purge?
Past the
Is this the
bedtime.
part? What were we talking about? What was the topic tonight? Because I got carried away. I gotta get into shit Sam Giancana and how they killed all the mobsters while they were getting haircuts. So
I love the picture in your background. Oh my god.
That
did
was
Chelsea
only one
do a
guy.
interview?
One guy.
Or is that AI? Is that real?
that's a real pick from their we're the greatest prosecution team ever.
I get, I don't
tour
know,
that
I'm
they're
gonna say it,
doing
but
right
I get
now.
mistress vibes from Shush. Like there's something going on with the two of them. I don't know. 'Cause she
I
should've
think they
lost
went
her
to
job. She should've
Olin
lost her job a
Mills
long time ago.
or the
You're
Sears
saying
Portrait Studio to get this taken.
Glamour
Trusty
shot.
Top, Bill Bottom. Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying
maybe. Maybe. I mean, listen.
They
she's
have
tough,
bunk beds
so
at their offices.
how does she have a
I
job
know that
still?
for a fact. And I get to
Mistress
be on
vibes,
top.
for sure.
Shush was always saying.
If I may direct you back to the
Yes,
flight pattern
Chrissy.
here, sir, and for landing, you're clear. Do you have any statements, final statements, plugs, etc.? Sir?
Please check out my friend Sleuthy Sweetheart's channel there. I put a link,
Yeah.
JJ, if you want to share that again. And also I put a link for Criminal Confidential Jenn.
Yeah.
You want to check her out. She's got a lot of great stuff. And she keeps popping up with stuff I don't even see in the news. If you're interested in true crime, Sleuthy Sweetheart and The Last 24, her friend Mike, they do a great show together on Fridays, which is like I call it the pre-JJ warm-up show for Fridays. So if you want to check out,
sounds like
Sleuthy
you may be
Sweetheart-
cloning me there, and I'm not sure yet. So I'm gonna continue to act dumb until I figure out what's going on here. Are you cloning me?
Well, not right now. I'm working on it.
All right.
Only on Sundays.
But yeah, it's called The True Crime with Sleuthy Sweetheart and The Last 24. Great channel, and they have a abysmal amount of subs. I'd love to have a few of you go over there and sub up on them and check out some of their content.
Well, I appreciate those plugs, and
You
I
don't mind the
also
plug.
recommend folks check those out. They're cocaine approved, as I like to say here. I do demand you provide some summary statements here in regards to not tonight's discussion, but the recent combination of Oreos and Reese's peanut butter.
Yes, it's now available with Oreo with Reese's filling and Reese's
Well,
with
you're
Oreo
underselling
chips.
it, sir. It's a reverse combo here. They're doing the Reese's with the Oreos and doing the Oreos with the Reese's. Let's not undersell the situation now.
Yeah, the Reese's have Oreo chips in them, and also McDonald's land. I wanted to touch on that. They're doing a throwback.
Do not shift topics, sir. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the Reese's
We don't
Oreos
switch topics
combo.
here. We don't do that.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet.
I demand
so
to
it
know
could
your
suck.
thoughts, Kane.
Listen, Nutter Butter needs to do a collab with
dude.
Bluebell ice cream. That's all. I'm putting that out in the universe right now.
Dude, I had a Nutter Butter milkshake one time. I don't remember where it was, but it was pretty tasty.
That sounds delicious. It might have been PDQ. I know they have a peanut butter shake. I think it might be that.
Am I to believe you have no further statements for tonight, sir?
I was trying to talk.
I see you've called me once again, and I'm going to rage quit my own show. So
I gave you a red beard too.
I have a red beard, so I mean it's pretty accurate. I'm half ginger.
No, I think that this pat each other, stroke each other's cock tour is going to come
you do
back
on your own time, sir. After the program's over, that's fine.
into their face.
Keep it
and what's the DP?
It's a family
Jen?
program. It's a family show.
What does DP stand for, Jen? Are you there? We lost Jen.
I think we've lost everybody at
I
this
was
point.
muted,
I do
sorry.
appreciate your
Death
thoughts and
penalty,
commentary
duh.
and the
Get
Abbott and
your mind
Costello
together.
routine.
Yeah, no, the double penetration of the state is. I'm glad that Phil
They definitely
is
double
able
penetrated.
to see the fuzzy, hazy story. That's hilarious. Should I play us out, JJ?
Well, I will. I appreciate your time. I Jen, cocaine. I slightly appreciate Jen's time. Well, I way appreciate Jen's time and Phil's time more than yours. But anyhow, nonetheless, you've clubbed me way too many times for my taste. I don't know what's going on right now. I'm going to object and file numerous Muppet complaints. But, folks, the interwebs, thanks again for joining us. Operation GCD Sundays, a little bit of my tributes to Dave McGowan's work. He radicalized me, as I often say, in these matters of conspiracy culture. And the Smells Like Laurel Canyon series, it's my Muppet Nirvana team right here. Smells Like Laurel Canyon series, where I compare and contrast, mainly just compare because it's all the same. The elements of the grunge counterculture with the 1960s hippie counterculture from weird scenes inside the canyon, extrapolating the salient characteristics from his book, and lo and behold, it's the same shit in Seattle 30 years later, and some of the same, in fact, people and their offspring. So, nonetheless, that'll be Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, here on Operation GCD and Operation GCD Patreons. So, and I will give one last round of rebuttals here for you folks here for joining me here tonight. Any last closing statements before we end this barn burner of a conversation? I do appreciate your all's time.
Thank you for having me, JJ.
Jen,
Appreciate
Phil,
it.
Good night,
Always a
Jen.
anybody?
pleasure.
Bueller?
Good night, Jen.
Thank you.
There you go.
Say good night, Jen.
That's what I was
Good night,
looking for. There we go. That's what I was waiting for.
Oh.
Say good night, Jen. There we go. I was teeing you up there, sir. And thank you all again, folks.
This
The
is
internet
not
for
on
joining
point
us.
tonight, Kane.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, well, check your six. Look in that garbage can, because you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.